In accordance with Section 5. Not on. I'm good. Okay. In accordance. Hello?
You're just getting feedback, though.
Oh, wait.
Jesse, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's on the actual device.
Do we all have feedback?
Hello?
Yeah.
Wow.
Turn on microphones.
Hello?
Yep, perfect.
Thank you. We're good, Mayor. Thank you. Sorry.
Ready? In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and electronically forwarding to the official designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall and remotely at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our township website. Please all stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Miss Miggins?
Here.
Miss Prupus?
Here.
Miss Stahl-Eglow?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mr. Vinayak?
Here.
Thank you.
I would like to move Resolution 21-092 out of the consent agenda so the committee may vote on it separately. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as revised?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good evening, Millburn Township. The recent mass murders in Atlanta and attacks on our brothers and sisters of Asian descent across the country underscored the need for us, as a community and a nation, to confront racism. We must acknowledge that racism takes many forms, both subtle and brutal. It metastasizes when those who seek to divide us succeed in deceiving us into believing that we are at war with our neighbors, that there is an us and there is a them. Yes, we do have differences, different backgrounds, different lives, different experiences, but there is a beauty in that, as there is a beauty in the bonds we have in common. We must seek to engage each other with compassion. To our Asian, South Asian, and Pacific Islander community members, we see you, we hear you, and we stand with you. We pledge to hold accountable anyone who chooses to spread hate and racism in our community, and will do whatever we can to foster greater understanding so we can all live up to our Milburn values. Our hearts go out to all the victims, their families, and communities. This past Sunday, there was a Candlelight Vigil in Taylor Park. In less than 24 hours, the community gathered in solidarity to recognize the victims of the mass shooting. I would like to now call on Maria Wu to come up and say a few words.
Maybe. Is it not staying? There we go.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor Krupis, for having me here to speak tonight. Good evening, members of the Township Committee. Good evening, my neighbors. My name's Maria Wu, and I'm here tonight to share with you some of my thoughts on Stop Asian Hate. But before that, we all learned another shocking crime. Yesterday, 10 people were killed, including a police officer, at a supermarket in Boulder, Colorado. On behalf of myself and our local Chinese community, we want to express our deepest condolences to the victims and their families. Who would imagine that a trip to the grocery store or a spa to pamper ourselves turned out to be a one-way trip? Crime against one is crime against all, and that's why I'm here tonight. I guess we've all learned the horrific Atlanta shooting event and also the countless violent crimes against Asian Americans across the country recently. I learned from the news that in California, 700 volunteers protect their elder to escort them through their neighborhood. While I was touched by the kindness of the volunteers, I was appalled at what triggered that kindness. Senior citizens have to use escorting service to walk in their own neighborhood so that they won't get pushed, punched, or even sliced. What kind of place are we living in? Maybe we feel that Georgia or California are far away, but actually we don't need to look further beyond our neighboring city, New York City. The police data showed that since the ongoing of the pandemic, the violent crimes against Asian Americans have increased by 19 times. And just 2 days ago, this past Sunday, a young lady took her little girl to attend a local rally. And on their way there, they were confronted by some strangers. Her poster was grabbed from her and thrown to the ground and stomped on, and she got punches in her face, and that was 2 days ago in New York City. I used to work in the city. My husband still does. And living in this town, I guess we all have family members, friends, neighbors who have to commute Monday to Friday to the city. And the fear of some unprovoked danger occurring to our loved ones have never been as real as now. A couple of days ago in a local WeChat group, a mom raised a question. She said, how am I going to explain all these horrible things to my little ones? A lot of parents shared her concern, me too. When I was discussing these troubling crimes with my son, he asked, why would people do that? I don't know how to respond because I have the exact same question. And I remember talking to him about what he should do if someone approached him and called him China virus. And my boy said, but didn't we try to help by giving people free face masks? He was referring to some volunteer activities we were part of last year. I don't know if you recall, last March, these things, they're abundant and cheap now, but they're nowhere to be found. Mm-hmm. And two of our residents, James Liu and Jen Cheng, along with dozens of other volunteers. They spent hours after hours to put together resources and to distribute free face masks to over 400 Milburn households. Actually, today, James Liu is here with us. And James, why don't you wave and so we know where you sit? That's James.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And around the same time, the Millburn Short Hills Chinese Association set up a coronavirus support fund. The fund raised more than $71,000 from over 300 Millburn and Short Hills families. With the donation, our volunteers literally worked around the clock to purchase the most needed PPEs and to distribute them to our local frontline responders and 39 health organizations near our area. I also remember that starting from last February, we saw an outbreak of COVID-19 in our own community, and a lot of our residents have to exercise self-quarantine at their own home, and they're having difficulty meeting their daily grocery needs. So I started a local support group to help neighbors buy groceries and deliver to their doorsteps. Within just a couple of days, there are 133 people joined the group. I don't know many of them personally, and from their names, they're from all sorts of ethnic backgrounds. I salute all those friends who joined me in these efforts, who risk their own health to help our neighbors in need. And I remember a friend of mine who is also one of the dedicated leaders in one of these activities. She said to me, initially she was paranoid by this virus. She's extremely nervous about her family members, especially her visiting parents, getting infected. But working day in and day out on all these good causes, that healed her, that cured her. She's no longer that anxious. And that speaks for many of us. We are not the source of the problem. We are part of the solutions. This past Sunday, as Mayor has just mentioned, the local Chinese community hosted Candlelight Vigil at Taylor Park to mourn the Atlanta victims. That event was organized within literally 24 hours, and our notice went out really late, but we're so surprised and we're extremely touched to see hundreds of friends and neighbors, Asians and non-Asians, showed up to support us. We want to take this opportunity to thank in particular Mayor for taking time to attend the rally with such short notice and for delivering a very touching message. Thank you. And we also recognized Maggie and Jamie Cerudo from the BOE who are also there for the Sunday rally. We thank you for your standing with us. And this coming Saturday actually, we're going to have another rally. We're going to meet at 2 p.m. in front of the Milburn High School. And this time the crowd will march from Milburn High to Taylor Park. And we're going to have a rally there. We sincerely hope, and we invite everyone from the township, everyone who's present here today, and everyone who's dialing in from your computer, together with your families and your friends who are in town, to please join us this coming Saturday, 2 p.m. in front of the Milburn High School. And in the future, I guess if unfortunately we're confronted by some strangers on the street or in a supermarket or in a restaurant who shout at us, "Go back to where you're coming from," we hope that your support will give us the courage and the strength to look right into their eyes and tell them, you know what? I'm from New Jersey, and I'm from Milburn. That's where I'm coming from. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and we hope to see you all this coming Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to us tonight. So I'm going to move along with the rest of my reports. The Environmental Commission met on March 10th. And I just want to kind of give everyone the heads up that it's been brought to our attention that a petition to ban or limit leaf blowers is in circulation, and I know that they may be talking about this at the next Milburn Environmental Commission on April 13th. So just letting everyone know that that is up for discussion. The parking ad hoc met on March 10th, and we talked about ordering some mobile 15-minute parking spots to put over around town. Alex, do you have an update?
Yeah, they've been ordered. We've got the graphics, and we've ordered 10 of them to display throughout the municipality or wherever
Did you
it's
say
needed.
10?
10.
Awesome.
correct.
That is great. On March 12th, Mr. McDonald and I met with our JCPL representative. We're having another meeting scheduled tomorrow, and we are talking about how to remove the old poles on Main Street. Long due conversation. On Monday, March 15th, Congressman Malinowski had a call for mayors on the COVID relief package. On March 15th and March 16th, we had members with the meetings of the Downtown Steering Committee and our traffic engineer to discuss two-way circulation in the downtown. And we are scheduling another meeting with the county during the first full week of April. The Art Advisory Committee met on March 17th. They're working on their talk series at the library. There's a new art hanging system at the library that's been installed. They are hoping to get the gallery space in the library back open in May with an art show. Film Fest will be an outdoor event this year on May 21st with a projector showing films on the side of the high school so people will be able to park in their cars and see the films. And this is the 10th year of the film festival, which is pretty amazing. And the Art Advisory Committee will be looking at AP art portfolios remotely this year. The Rahway River Mayor's Council received a letter of support for further investigation of the consensus plan from our county executive. And we're hoping that the governor will join us at our next meeting to give us his support to urge the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers along on that project. So basically, at the Orange Reservoir at the recreational complex, they're talking about putting in a bypass that would lower the water levels to collect rain so that 3 days before a storm to prevent flooding for us and then the downstream communities, which is pretty amazing. This conversation too has been going on for a very long time. So to see some kind of resolution and some solution is pretty amazing. On March 22nd, the sign ordinance subcommittee met and we started that process, so more to be continued there. The next town-wide reading project will be held on Wednesday, March 31st at 8 p.m. Please join the Book House and the Millburn Short Hills Anti-Racism Task Force for the March Book Club. The book is The Conversation, How Seeking and Speaking the Truth About Racism Can Radically Transform Individuals and Organizations by Robert Livingston. We have the book. The last meeting was on a Sunday afternoon and there was a really good turnout. It's virtual, so anyone can join. So I urge you to get the book from the Book House and to join us. Bike Week, mark your calendars, April 17th through April 24th, and the next PSAB meeting is on April 28th at 7 p.m. Okay, we'll go in our usual order. Committeewoman Eglo, do you have any reports?
No
on this?
reports.
Okay, Committeewoman Miggins.
I do. Good evening. Cora Hartshorn Arboretum, the summer camp sold out. We're very excited about that. That meeting was on the 11th, and on the 15th, the library met, the library board, and they reactivated some of the public computers. So they're very excited about that. So things are starting to get back online. And then there'll be a program on the history of Greenwood Gardens on the 6th. And then on the 5th, fireside chat. So you can get that all online with the library. And then just as liaison to the Historic Preservation Committee, they called a meeting last evening. They will be giving a report. I received notice of it today. I wasn't on the meeting, but they'll be giving a report to the project on Chatham and Woodland Road. They're preparing a report as the HPC for that project.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Deputy Mayor Wasserman.
Thank you, Mayor. Mine is a little more long-winded. I just want to say that I was very touched by the speaker before. I was there when when the Chinese Association gave those 400 masks. And I will just tell you that I think I speak for all of us, that we stand with you in solidarity. You know, this is a diverse community, and it's a loving community, and we are with you. So I just wanted to... Anyway, so getting on with my report. So for CETA, we have a very exciting art installation from artist Michael Cooper that's going to be installed in Taylor Park. And as it turns out, the title of the sculpture is All Together Now, which I think is actually very appropriate. We hope to have groundbreaking at some time in May or June, and it should be fantastic. And it'll be right in time for summer, and we'll keep you posted as the work goes on. Special thanks to former Mayor Jackie Benjamin for doing all this work. She's been tremendous in making this happen. So I just want to throw that out there. Also, we're going to be hearing about downtown visioning. It's something that's been very dear to my heart. It's been an honor for me to serve on downtown visioning. The entire steering committee, along with the mayor and our professionals, have worked tirelessly to complete this project on time and on budget. The budget, in terms of the budgeting for this, they didn't spend a penny more than, what was contracted for. And I want to offer special thanks to our mayor, Beth Zoll, Gaston Hopart, Amy Lawrence, who I think is here, Priya Patel, Alex Zoltzman, and of course, special thanks to former Mayor Dan Beer for all of his advice and counsel as we went through the process. As you will see, the visioning project envisions a more open green space, two-way traffic on Milburn and Essex, new opportunities and pathways for bike riding, elimination of outdated regulations and zoning which hampers our ability to invite new businesses to our township. In short, this visioning process will enable our township to be more competitive with our neighboring towns and offer an even better place to live and raise our kids. So I just wanted to say that. And for Explore Milburn, it's been a really busy time. They've been very busy working on a bunch of different projects for the township. First, Spring into Milburn Short Hills, which is something that we are doing with 27 merchants. It's starting, and it's basically 27 merchants. You can win a $25 gift card. It's a very exciting thing, and we'll have this posted. So that's something that we're working on. In addition, let me see what else I can say. Also, we've been working on Mother's Day. Stay local, enjoy Mother's Day weekend with Mom in Milburn. It will be a great time to shop and dine and stay local and enjoy all of our shops and restaurants and fun. On Saturday, May 8th, Explore Milburn will be hosting fitness classes in Taylor Park at 9, 10, and 11 o'clock in the morning. We'll also have live music on Main Street in the afternoon, and we have some surprises for the kids. We have some fun things planned for all the kids. So this Mother's Day, don't go anywhere. Stay local, enjoy the township, and we have some fun entertainment for you. Also, one of the other things that we're working on with Explore Milburn is we're developing a welcome package for businesses. This is something that we're going to have on our website, and so when a business is looking at coming to the township, like other towns and other SIDs, we're going to be able to give them a package with some things, some names, addresses, rules, regulations. We're going to try to make it easier for businesses to come and call this their home. So I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. You've been busy.
Thanks for listening.
Of course. Thanks for doing all the work. Committeeman Vinayak, do you have a report for us tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you so much for coming over and talking to us. And if you ever doubt, and I'm talking about the lady who came in, sorry, I didn't really get her name.
Maria,
But Maria, thank you so much for doing all the work that you have done. And Mayor Purpose had sent me the invite for earlier March as well, but still in quarantine. I will surely join on Saturday. But whenever in doubt and somebody calls you out saying, go back to China, look in their eyes. We have the seat at the table. I'm the first person of color who has joined the township committee. We have a very versatile community here, and we won with a very, very good margins. So people of our township, they're very pro different communities. So I think we are in a very good town with a very big and good community. And thank you so much for all the work. I'm very aware when the masks were delivered right up in the beginning in March, April time zone, when the Chinese community has come forward and delivered it to all the EMTs and other community members of our town. But thank you again for everything you do. Keep up the good work. Secondly, on the report side, we have finally, and last meeting also I brought this up as the KPIs, public-facing KPIs, where we measure performance for our department. We are doing that 2 to 3 KPIs across each department. We have about 15 or 16 departments, but public-facing KPIs will be 7. It will include fire, it will include police, it will include within the police's car thefts or home burglaries. It will also include how many complaints were lodged through our website and how many were processed, of those were processed. So it's a pretty good indication. Whether it's a good indication or a bad month, it will still be shared with the township residents every month. So if it goes in the wrong direction, we know where we need to put in our efforts. So thank you again for Alex and his team to come up with those KPIs. And that's all for my report.
thank you, Committeeman. Mr. McDonald, do you have some reports for us tonight?
I do, Mayor. Thank you. So first and foremost, I wanted to report back to the Township Committee on the request that had come in about the speed bumps in Lot 14. These are taken out of Lot 14 each winter for snow plowing efforts. They've been returned and will stay there until taken out again for next snow season. Some other things I'll be touching on later in the meeting in terms of parklets, but wanted to let the committee know that we have developed a parklet guidelines for those that are interested in parklets and putting some outdoor dining in the streets according to certain rules and building materials, as well as oversight from the township. We've already started receiving a lot of cafe licenses, and we are processing them very expeditiously to assist our restaurants in getting out there and having seating. And again, this is at no cost, but we do need the application and the insurance for that outdoor seating. But the weather is starting to turn nice, and we're happy to have everybody out there and enjoying our local restaurants. The speed bumps. That's I think that's it for me. Unless there was something else I probably forgot.
Do you have an update on the angled parking in front of the deli?
Yeah, so we are still looking to place that angle parking. We will probably be a little bit behind in April 1st implementation, but we're looking to have a few spaces. It's been recommended that we reduce the number of spaces but maintain the reverse angle and see how this works. I think, again, this is just a trial. And if it is not successful, we can easily take those spaces out and try to come up with another solution for that area. And we are going to have sort of a team of DPW and police sort of working toward putting that in, implementing it safely, and guiding people through that for the first few days so that we we can help people with that transition. We also have some information that will be put up on the website to help people kind of understand what reverse angle parking. And it'll be a first trial, and again, this is just a what they call tactical urbanism, where we want to just put in a trial place and see how this works in the town. And again, if it works, great. If it does not, then we can easily remove it. It's water-based paint, things like that.
Okay, great. And we'll just keep communication really open and let everyone know what's going on.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yes.
And then how are the KPIs? Do you know how that's going to be, where that's going to be posted yet, or how we'll distribute?
Yeah, so those will be posted tomorrow, probably by the afternoon. We just received, I just sent them to our PIO, Public Information Officer, who will be putting those up on the website. They will be found under Resident Services, which is a tab, one of our major tabs. And so to start, we'll put them up more prominently, but they're going to live under performance measurements on the township website.
Great. Okay. Ms. Voss, do you have any reports for us tonight?
Thank you, Mayor.
You're good. I think you're on.
Is it on? Thank you, Mayor. I don't always get the privilege to attend these meetings, so I'll take advantage of this opportunity to update you briefly on two environmental matters that I'm working on for the township. One is the remediation of the former Exxon station at the intersection of Maine and Essex, which is now a parking area. This remediation is being undertaken by the township. The township has retained an LSRP, has had this LSRP for several years at this point. This site underwent an enhanced anaerobic bioremediation, which was a pilot program several years ago that involved the injection of Epsom salts and gypsum slurry into the groundwater on 3 different occasions. That pilot program has demonstrated success, but due to certain updated DEP regulations, additional delineation had to be conducted. TRC has done that recently, and again, I think that the results have been favorable, and the goal is to get the groundwater to a place where it can continue to attenuate naturally over a period of time, during which the township would be responsible for sampling. And so in order to get to that place, we have to show that contaminants have attenuated to a certain level over a course of 8 samples. So that requires TRC to provide the township with another proposal for the next scope of work. I've asked them to go ahead and prepare that so that we can review it and ultimately submit it to the Township Committee for consideration on the next steps. So we hope to have that soon. The deadline for the remediation is May 7 of this year, but that will be extended. The next matter that I'll just briefly report on is the Schoolhouse Plaza remediation, which is right next door. That is not a remediation that is being undertaken by the township. That is a private remediation. The way that the township is involved is that the contamination has migrated onto the township-owned property, and the township has provided properly access to the remediating party to do their work. It's really a matter of groundwater at this point. And so the access that was previously granted a few years ago has expired. And so we're now in the midst of negotiating an extension of another access agreement with the remediating party. So the next step for that will be for me to submit a proposed access agreement to enter into with Schoolhouse. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the January 5th, 2021 Township Committee minutes?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So tonight we have Perkins Eastman is here to present the final plan. We went through this visioning process together over the past 5 months, and actually we're going to bring up the chair of the planning board, Beth Zoll, who is going to speak to the process of the steering committee.
Hi, good evening. All right, oop, is my camera's turned on. Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Hi there, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, you can hear me all right?
We can.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Purpose and Township Committee members. Special thank you to Committeeman Wasserman for naming all of the steering committee members earlier, so I don't have to go through everyone's name again. Everyone deserves recognition for their part in this process. Before I jump in, I just wanted to quickly take a moment to pause and publicly thank the Milburn Short Hills Chinese Association myself. At the beginning of the pandemic last year, I was one of the community members who emailed and reached out and no questions asked, received free masks for my family and I, which we were very grateful for. At the time, we couldn't get them. So you're wonderful neighbors and an essential part of our community, and just wanted to echo what I think other people are saying as well. That said, I came here a few months ago to a previous Township Committee meeting as a representative of the Milburn Downtown Area Vision Plan Steering Committee. And at that time, I was introducing some of the early action concepts that had emerged from the study, including exploring zoning and lowering the bars of entry for businesses to come to our town, as Richard echoed as well earlier. But tonight, I'm happy to introduce Eric Fang from our consulting team, Perkins Eastman, who is wonderful to coordinate with. He held our proverbial hands through the visioning process, meeting regularly with our steering committee to be sure that the input the team was hearing was accurate on our community. Input including the 2 public workshops that were held via Zoom, small focus group meetings, interviews with individual township members and staff, walkthroughs of our downtown, as well as a retail data analysis. So the Perkins Eastman team, like I said, was great to work with. And with no further ado, I want to turn this over to them so that Eric can provide some of the recommendations directly with you. So thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Beth. This is Eric Fang. I am going to share my screen, and everyone let me know when you can see that.
We can see it.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to do today is, or this evening, is give you an overview of the process, go through some of the main points of the plan, and then talk about next steps in implementation. And here with me tonight is Susan Pavante of BFJ Planning and Maurice Ratchet of Colliers Design Engineering, was the township's traffic consultant who's been working with us. And we had, as Beth mentioned, done this through an interdisciplinary process. So we also had, in addition to design and planning and the traffic team, we also had retail specialist, which was Street Sense, and Marissa Ortiz, who's not here, but I'm going to give an overview of her points. Deputy Mayor Wasserman had relayed to you all of the members of the team, and it was a team, really, team effort, steering committee and the consultant team. So I don't have to go through everyone's names, and I'd like to acknowledge the great collaborative work that we've done together. We started with a set of half a dozen goals. This was our charge from the get-go, and I'm going to read them out to you because we should be kind of measured against this. Encourage appropriate land uses that promote the character of the township as a small suburb of the highest quality. Promote, improve, and support efficient streets and sidewalks and safe connections to transit for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. Recognize and encourage township organizations that strengthen activities to strengthen businesses and social networks. Maintain and enhance economic vitality of the downtown and other business districts. Recognize and encourage the preservation of areas, structures, and sites of historic interest, and develop and implement strategies to address townwide sustainability and resilience. So we conducted this over a 5-month, more or less, period. We started in October last year, and as Beth mentioned, we really kind of hit on all cylinders at once. On-site observation, we started with an on-site tour. walking to downtown. We crunched numbers. We reviewed all of the existing plans and really tried to learn from them. We know there's quite a bit of work that had gone on, and everything was something that fed into our effort. We did a lot of listening to stakeholders. That was probably the most important. And then we went back on the board to see how everything fit together. And then as the conclusion of that process, that initial analysis, which was the end of last year, beginning of this year, we came up with a set of planning principles which defined kind of the key moves. We went through a series of options. And again, this is after another period of listening where we kind of test drove the planning principles. And then we came up with the final design framework, which I'll present to you this evening. So I wanted to stress one thing, which was the public and stakeholder engagement, which was extensive. We had two very large public workshops. We did online mapping that was up for two different periods of several weeks, one at the end of last year, one at the beginning of this year. We interviewed extensively downtown property and business owners, and then we had meetings with some of the key groups and agencies, all of which are necessary to make sure that the plan was kind of ground truth, and also with regard to the agencies, that it could be implemented, because we're going to need their cooperation. The township's going to need their cooperation going forward. So the principles that we arrived at were fivefold. So number one was the focus of food and beverage within the downtown core. That might be a new term. I'm going to explain that to you shortly. Goal is to increase downtown patronage and visitation and economic vitality by improving pedestrian connections to the destination drivers. And I'll explain what those are, but the downtown Milburn has some assets that are absolutely unique for downtowns of this size in the state and in the region, really. The regional theater, the movie theater, the great parks, train stations, and it was really just an exercise of almost connecting the dots. One of the moves that the mayor mentioned, which is convert Milburn Ave and Essex Street to two-way traffic, improve the public realm. And this was some simple moves, burying utility lines, planting trees, filling gaps in the street wall, and then looking at where we could focus and introduce new development in a way that wouldn't fundamentally change the character of downtown, but would strengthen it and reinforce it. So, and then finally, and not last but not least, and this really came about, this was an additional principle that we added after the outreach that we had done with business owners, was create a welcoming environment for new and existing businesses by streamlining the processes, removing barriers to investment, and getting the message out that Milburn is open for business. Last but not least, maybe it should be number one. So the first public workshop we had in December, we had really unbelievable to me, because it's kind of a new thing, all this online workshop, online engagement. And we got over 140 participants. That was right in the middle of a online ideas wall and survey, which we got over 700 and well over 100 comments. So that was very, very informative. We measured all this stuff. This is all available, and you can peruse this online, and it will be in our final report. We tried to understand what brought people to downtown. Again, these downtown destination drivers. This is mainly geared toward residents, so the dining, the shops, the library, Taylor Park. What the priorities were: economic development, making sure that the businesses stayed strong and there was a good variety of offerings, and expanded offerings of places to eat. Then we had another workshop just earlier this month. We got over 200. So the downtown and Milburn residents in general were very, very interested, enthusiastic, participatory. So it was really terrific, and general support for a lot of the concepts that we had started to show by that time in March. We had a second interactive map and dashboard. So people were kind of, putting pins and comments, things that they would have done in real life on boards with stickies or magic markers, but we figured out a way to do this, Susan and her team, interactively, and it was very successful, I would say, in getting feedback. So we also crunched numbers, as I mentioned, and we really wanted to make sure that the plan was geared in some metrics. We wanted to understand what was there with regard to existing retail. Past plans had looked at expanding the retail base, and we found that there was really a parity between overall supply and demand. There was some degree of unmet demand, a small amount, 10,000, but there was an oversupply in other categories, food and beverage, general apparel, accessories, and furnishings, and other, which was about 9,700 square feet oversupply, and then over 50,000 square feet in the category which are retail specialists called alcohol away from home. It's kind of a funny category, but I think the explanation for that is not an excessive consumption of alcohol, but really we attribute that to the paper mill and all of the folks that the paper mill has drawn, which when we kind of dug deeper on that, it's over 200,000 people annually to the theater, with over 200 dates a year. So that's quite significant. And then, looking at the future with regard to demographics and spending patterns and so forth, we saw that it was basically flat, a little bit of growth, 1.6%. The future growth would be primarily driven by residents in the primary trade area. And the next 5 years, some increased demand in neighborhood goods and services to tune of about 10,000 square feet. So not a huge amount. There was some expansion for these categories, neighborhood goods and services. The keys we really felt concluded were to try to capture and leverage the destination drivers. So what we mean by destination drivers were those things, those unique things that people come to anyway, Taylor Park, the Playhouse, etc., and get them to come downtown and patronize the shops. So those are great, advantages that downtown Milburn has, and really allows our retail specialist, Larissa said, really allows the downtown to punch above its weight, if you will. So the kind of factors that were identified were really strengthening the connections to those destination drivers, making a more comfortable and attractive and easy to get around environment downtown. And it's really about, you come downtown, you feel like you got rewarded in some way, shape, or form, right? You had a great experience, it was easy, you got and found what you were looking for, you found something new and surprising. And we looked at the downtown in terms of all the different categories of retail. And this is a map that color codes all the different various retail uses. And you can see that red kind of pink colored cruciform shape in Maine and Milburn really kind of forms a cluster, a focus, or we're calling it the core. And so that really informed our approach, where the downtown would stretch from homes all the way over past town hall is really a core flanked by two shoulder areas. And so we'll talk about what that means, but that really informed our strategy for land uses and so forth. And the basis of that really was that the shoulder areas need to be reinforced to strengthen the core. Okay, so we're not looking at big growth, but we're looking to bring more people into downtown, keep them there because they're getting a great experience. And that's kind of our little conceptual diagram to show that. So I'm going to talk about the plan a little bit. As I mentioned, the different destination drivers, and really this exercise of connecting the dots, and I'll show you what I mean shortly. We try to do that by creating great places. And what we mean by places are parks, plazas, great streets, buildings and places together. And that was really the key to this plan, this placemaking. I'll go through a couple of those. Essex, Taylor Park, which interestingly, you know, that's really the heart of a lot of what goes on. And, but it's largely hidden from view from the heart of downtown and from Milburn Ave. It's the green edge. You have to walk past that maybe over 150 feet. And while it's an oasis inside the park, it's largely unknown outside. So we proposed trying to open that up. And, you know, there's a balance because we don't want to ruin the specialness of it, that great sense of escape and, you know, intimacy that you get when you're in the beautiful gardens. But we also want people coming through downtown to know that it's there, for people to go who are going to the park to be able to patronize the neighboring shops, and then maybe for some of the restaurants to be able to open out onto them with the outdoor dining and so forth, and to create better connections. So the other thing was the reservation, and that we know took my family. This is a great discovery as we were working on the plan. You know, we had also to look for COVID appropriate activities. So we went hiking in the reservation a couple times over the holidays. Now it's terrific. But you know, you're only 3 minutes from Milburn Ave, but you might as well not know that. It's only a short walk, 800 little over 800 feet. But there's very little facilities for pedestrians or bikes. And so what we were imagining was if that could be a park-to-park connection at Lackawanna. And if we could make that more friendly to pedestrians. Right now, this is a cross-section, so imagine if you cut right through the street. There's only 7 feet for pedestrians, so barely enough for 2 people to get by. And then if you add the telephone poles, then it's quite pinched and not particularly attractive. There's no place for bikes. So we're proposing just a minor tweaks to that street, slightly wider sidewalks, accommodating bikes. So if you could imagine going from the south end of Taylor Park to the north end all the way up to the zoo, you'd have 4 miles of continuous bike trails. And that would be something that could be attractive, you know, throughout the county. It would really be unique. People who are coming from to the reservation or library could easily get downtown just by making that link. Similarly, the Playhouse, which I mentioned, you know, has over 200 dates, gets 200,000 people a year. Pre-COVID, of course. We hope that's going to return. Is very close to downtown, yet feels so far. And so we spent a lot of time concentrating on, Old Short Hills Road above Essex, between Essex and the tracks, trying to make that more attractive by filling in some of the gaps with other small retail. So when you're walking past, it feels like a shorter walk. And then also, potentially a town green at the corner of Essex and Old Short Hills that could be used for different activities. Right now, the farmers market is there. The farmers market continue to be there, but it would be really that's like one of the symbolic kind of centers of the town. And if that could be, shown as such, I think it would be a really great and attractive addition. Now, there was and is ongoing flooding issues. There was a study that was commissioned last fall. Mott McDonald published that and released the report in October, which had several recommendations, one of which was to to extend the length of the Milburn Ave and Essex Street bridges in order to unimpede the flow, or I guess open up the flow of the river. And we took that as a challenge to not just make that an engineering project, but when that happens, and this will require outside funding and much further studying, engineering analysis, to make sure that becomes a public space improvement and economic development project as well. So if you look at the current condition of the river, it's not necessarily something that people would be attracted to by itself. We envision this as potentially a public walkway. It has a number of different advantages. One is that it could be a setting for outdoor dining. Another is that it actually kind of unlocks the municipal garage. It would give you a straight line view to the garage from the downtown core. And it could just be a terrific and new environment. Again, it's that notion of rewarding people to come downtown. in addition to these different discrete places, parks, gateways, and so forth, we felt it was very important to address the circulation problems. Now, that was one thing that we heard through the outreach, that people were frustrated by the one-way traffic, the various loops and detours they had to make. Also, the speed, particularly east of Main Street on Milburn Ave, and then Essex, which is 3 lanes in one direction. Not the most pedestrian friendly. I don't know, Maurice is here if he has the rights to present, but take you through several of the slides. We were proposing as the basis, turning Essex and Milburn to 2-way, which we discussed, and he can take you through some of the details of that. Okay, well, if not, I'm going to keep going. In addition, we're proposing to bring bikes downtown.
I'm sorry, Eric, were you asking me to interject and speak about the study?
Yes, I'm going to do the bikes, and then right after
Okay,
that,
whenever you're ready, I'm ready. You
okay,
let me know. Okay.
I'll dispose of this one slide, which is very important, which is in addition to taming the traffic a little bit and improving the circulation, we propose to bring and accommodate a place for bikes downtown. And we know that Milburn is very busy. There's a lot of things, a lot of demands on it because it's the main shopping street. We felt that Essex provided a very good opportunity for bikes. We created this bike plan that connects to all of the schools, also connects to the parks, and provide a way for school kids to get downtown. Again, that kind of continuous north-south that could go up to the Turtleback Zoo all the way down to the south end of Taylor Park, and then allow people to commute to the train station by bikes and really widen that traditionally about a half-mile radius that people will walk from the train station out. So really expand the commuter shed for folks who want to take a ride to the, who want to ride their bikes to the train station to get their morning commute. So now, Maurice, if you could go through a couple of these key intersections.
Sure.
And the findings of the modeling, I'm sorry. So Maurice, I'll just 1 second before you start, that we wanted to make sure that what we're proposing wasn't just good, good on paper, but we wanted to make sure that it was modeled and it was vetted with the numbers. And so that's what Maurice will take you through quickly.
Very good. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here. This meeting started on a very emotional tone, and it hit me to the heart. Anyway, I'm recovered, and I want to give you a little flavor of the traffic study I did. If I can, I'd like to share my screen. I have a handful of slides that are from my report. So, Alex, if I can have the right to share my screen for maybe 5 minutes, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, Eric just has to stop sharing his for a second.
Okay. All right, very good. So here we go. So what I'm going to share with you are snapshots of the study. This is the study area, the Millburn downtown area. It shows Essex Street and Milburn Street. It has blue stars at the intersections that we analyzed. This is the actual area of study. It goes all the way from Parkview to the east to Douglas to the west. And it covers approximately 9 to 10 intersections in between. And before I start, there was a lot of questions about when we took the data and what type of data we took. So these are some snapshots of the data we took. This particular one we took in November of 2018. So this was before COVID. This one was taken in August 2020, before COVID. This one was taken in July in 2020. This one was taken in January 2021 during COVID. But what we did for the COVID-related analysis and data, we revised the data and we adjusted it to match pre-COVID conditions. And then we developed what you see here. This is an existing condition diagram. As you could see, for example, on Essex, you have no traffic coming west to east. It's all east to west. On Milburn, it's the opposite. And from there, we went and we balanced the system. And this is the flow diagram that shows traffic going eastbound and westbound on Essex as well as on Milburn. And this shows you the traffic moving in both directions. And then we went in and we looked at every intersections. We came up with an approximate geometry for the intersection that shows number of lanes, turning movements, and a very general geometry in terms of islands and configuration for how the intersection will look in the future. And for each one of them, we have a level of service analysis that shows you the delays and the level of service that is anticipated at each of these intersections. This one here shows, for example, the intersection of Douglas and Milburn, which would be a stopped control intersection. And then in the report, you will find, if you review it, dozens and dozens of sheets like this. Toward the bottom, you see the colors. This is the signalization, the timing. And on top, you see measures that have everything from delay, movement, queuing, and so on. So I wanted to give you a quick flavor of how we did the study. The purpose of this study is to determine whether or not a two-way operation will work on Essex and on Milburn. That means restoring the two-way operation. I did a little bit of history, and I found that the one-way operation was put in place back in the late 40s, so it's been a while. And back in the 40s and the 50s, the main objective of agencies such as counties, state, and other agencies was to move traffic on a regional level. So they made changes to the roadways to move traffic from one town to the next or on a regional level. The concern was not necessarily how traffic would affect the downtown areas, but more so how traffic moves from point A to point B. Well, right now, we're more concerned about the downtown area, and restoring a two-way traffic, we feel is a good idea. Actually, this was proposed by Perkins Eastman for a variety of reasons, and the study is to determine if it works. Now, these roadways are county roadways, therefore we need the county's blessing before we can move forward. So we did the legwork, we submitted the study to the county, and I think we're working on meeting with the county in about approximately 10 days to 2 weeks to go over the county's review and how the county feels about reinstating a two-way operation on Essex and on Milburn. In general, the study is very complicated, has a lot of numbers, but I could tell you in general that the difference in traffic is not significant. And what I mean by that, when we look at the delays, at the queuing, we find that a two-way system is indeed workable. A two-way system is sustainable and is operationally doable in the downtown area. And what it provides for better access to the businesses, better maneuvering for people that work and live in and around the downtown area. And also, it will serve to slow traffic down. The one-way operation has a lot of benefits, but these benefits may not be primary for us. One of the benefits of one-way operation is the movement of traffic and the increase in speed. And we all know as drivers, when we drive along a roadway that is one or two lanes and it's a one-way operation, we tend to go a little bit faster. When it's a two-way operation, this is an indirect traffic calming method for traffic. The idea here is to get traffic to move slower, to provide all the movements and all the opportunities to revitalize the downtown area, and also to allow pedestrians to cross safer because of the lower vehicular speed. The study, in addition to vehicular traffic, did consider, of course, pedestrian traffic. We will have all the movements with pedestrian phases that are very favorable, providing plenty of time for pedestrians to cross. And like I said, the next step for us is to get the county to agree to the proposal. So we move to the next step. We look at the designs, we look at the constructability, and we look at the various issues that we need to address before we put this into action. So this is a quick summary of the study. If you have any question, Eric, or if you want me to address anything in particular, go ahead and ask. You're on mute, Eric.
I'm going to leave the questions for after, and I'm sure there will be many.
Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen to go back to your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Maurice.
Thank you.
All right, so I am going to go back to my presentation right here. And so one thing I wanted to, okay, just let me know when you can see this again.
We can see it.
So associated with the traffic changes, which is key to really creating a much more easy, rewarding experience, allowing people to navigate around to get to the parking that is there and to their destinations without making wide circles or speeding past, is also trying to make the downtown pedestrian realm a little more comfortable and pedestrian friendly. So as Maurice said, we're actually improving the circulation while slowing the speeds down, which was important because that's something that we heard many times about the excessive speeds. People passed the Main Street intersection, they kind of peel off, and then similarly on Essex Street, which is 3 lanes, that really is more conducive to encouraging people to drive a little faster. So on Milburn, I think one of the first things that people see are the utility poles, and that was something that we felt really, was not really commensurate with one of the Downtown Vision Committee's #1 goal, which was to really reinforce and project a sense of downtown Milburn as a community of the highest order. And we had the 3 lanes in one direction, the parking relatively narrow, sidewalks. We feel that with slight tweaks, we can get much wider sidewalks. We can get the parking, keep the parking on both sides, and slow down the traffic. And these are things that are going to require further study, but also we felt would be important to be done in conjunction with street trees. So basically swapping out, the utility poles and the wires and so forth for trees, which would have many benefits. There are many studies that have shown that there's a correlation between higher sales, better business activities, better perception of the downtown business, et cetera, with street trees specifically. And then, provide shade, a much more pleasant environment. There's something called the heat island effect, which is basically all of that huge, expansive pavement exacerbating and heating up and making a much warmer environment on the sidewalk, which we know is going to only get worse in time as the climate changes. Similarly on Essex Street, which right now is a street with seems very wide, very little scale. The wires and the poles are really the thing that kind of dominates. We feel can accommodate two-way traffic, as Maurice pointed out, bike lanes, as mentioned before, parking on both sides. And when I say parking, I think we actually are calling it a kind of a curb management zone, because we know that in this day and age, there are all sorts of different things happening along the curb. Ubers, Amazon deliveries, so forth and so on, Uber Eats, all that kind of good stuff, plus parking. And so we want to make sure there's a zone that can happen, and that can accommodate better uses, more uses, and more development potentially, on Essex Street. As a focus for Essex Street, we zeroed in on one area in particular because we wanted to really just build off of what downtown has right now and just kind of, again, connect the dots, tweak things slightly to make them improved. And, there's this triangle, kind of an overlooked triangle at Essex and Town Hall Plaza behind Town Hall. And we really felt that that could be the focus for the whole west side of downtown. Potentially the site of Town Hall extension, if there was desire for that in the future. The DPW site, if it's developed, could be developed with the adaptive reuse of the existing garage. We're showing something called the paper mill downtown. This is all just kind of speculation, but you can imagine all sorts of great uses there, potentially new development, and this could be a real hub. So this is a summary in plan form of the various recommendations. The DPW site redeveloped with either adaptive reuse or new development where the garage is, a new garage, not as big as the garage, municipal garage, new infill development, on various sites along Essex Street, Riverwalk, Downtown Gateway, etc. New connection between the two parks, and the traffic changes. Okay, and then this gives you a round number of what those amount to, and they are commensurate with the findings that we saw in the retail analysis. I want to talk a little bit about the DPW site because I know that that's been a focus of enormous attention in the past. Our approach to that is that right now we do not see that as the highest and best use. Recycling yard, surface parking in the garage. But the plan really offers up a very flexible menu for the future of that site. Right now, there are those three parts. There's surface parking, there's a recycling yard, and there's the garage. And the plan really is proposing a flexible menu of different things that can happen. All three could stay. The recycling yard could go, and be relocated first. The garage, which probably would be more difficult because it entails construction of a new facility, could go later, and then development on the parking once the new garage would be built would allow for new development. It would free up the surface garage right next to Dunkin', Charlie Brown's, and fill up some of those gaps. We're proposing, along with that, new access road. So the one thing about the site is that it's very long and deep, and there's no way to get to the center of the site. So we're proposing a new road that could actually make the pedestrian experience a little bit better as well along Essex Street. So with that, those are kind of a high-level overview of the recommendations, physical recommendations, and the vision. But Susan's going to talk a little about some of the regulatory and policy recommendations, which I think are co-equal importance with what Maurice has mentioned and what I discussed.
Thanks, Eric. We did look deeply at your existing zoning and other regulatory factors that are in place right now. And one reason why this is important to focus on is it's something that is entirely within the township's control. You can change your zoning at any point in time, and it's a very much a low-hanging fruit. It can have an immediate impact. And I'm sorry, I'm losing your screen, Eric.
Sorry.
If you can go back one slide, can have an immediate impact, and it is relatively inexpensive, virtually free. There's nothing that's totally free, but you can very quickly and economically change your zoning. So we looked in particular at the B4 district, and one of the key recommendations here is something that came out of both the public outreach as well as all the stakeholder meetings we had, is really looking at expanding the uses further in the B4 district. Again, trying to capitalize on active uses that bring people downtown, making restaurants and other eating and drinking establishments a permitted use rather than a conditional use. There are plenty of ways that you can control those types of uses to make sure that you're balancing protection of the neighborhoods. Theaters, museums, amazingly, theaters are not allowed currently in the B4, even though you have a movie theater in that B4 district. Indoor commercial recreation, potential for things like breweries, brew pubs, even distilleries, and then co-working space. All of these things we expect there to be a high demand for, particularly as we come out of COVID. And then another aspect is allowing actual flexibility within the spaces of buildings. So having more than one permitted use able to be occupying one space. So you could have a cafe that perhaps has classes at night, knitting classes or something like that. Very small scale artisan manufacturing that, is essentially light industrial, but may also have classes and a shop and a cafe. There's just a lot of flexibility that provides and creates a bit more of a destination really for the region, something that's unique. For the next slide. Those changes really are throughout the B4 district. In the downtown core in particular, where you really want to encourage pedestrian generated activities, walk-in traffic, you currently do not allow offices on the ground floor in the B4 district, except there's some carve-outs, and we're suggesting kind of loosening that up a bit to recognize that there are a number of office type uses that do generate walk-in traffic. Real estate offices you do allow, but things like a walk-in clinic, CityMD, insurance agencies, and then outdoor dining was something that we universally heard a lot of support, a lot of excitement about the closure of Main Street last summer, and really a lot of demand to open that up and make that permanent on a seasonal basis. So that's a physical change as well as the regulations that support that. And then also looking at things like rooftop dining as an accessory use for a restaurant that's on the ground floor. Can be done, and there are ways to control, noise impacts and things like that, but it's something that more and more towns, including smaller suburbs, are looking at. So then beyond the downtown core, but still in the B4 district, Eric spent some time talking about the DPW site. When we looked at that site and the potential for future redevelopment there or revitalization, it does lend itself more to perhaps makerspace uses, again, that artisan, very light scale manufacturing, as well as potential combinations of residential and commercial. On the shoulder areas to the east and west, we think that you can open up the ground floor uses a bit in terms of allowing residential and office on the ground floor. There's less of a need for it to be a more active pedestrian environment there. It could allow for a little bit of a transition to the neighborhoods that adjoin that area. Okay. Parking is something that we heard a lot about. We always hear a lot about in any downtown we work in, and we think that there is some more work to be done on the parking side to really study some particular strategies. But we have some things identified here, and one would be looking at better managing your permit system for better efficiency. So making sure that you're not over providing permits to employees of downtown businesses that don't really need them, but at the same time you're providing places for employees to park that are not the prime spaces in front of the stores. You want to reserve those for your customers, but you're providing enough parking for those employees as well as the customers in the right places. The municipal garage has a lot of parking available. A lot of people don't seem to know exactly who it's for, where they can park, when they can park. I think there's some work to be done there to open up that garage, make it clear that it's not just a commuter garage, have some better signage, perhaps even looking at the interactive electronic displays that let people know, how many spaces are left before I drive into this parking garage. Some tweaks to make it a little bit more accessible to the rest of the downtown. And the Riverwalk idea would help a lot there as well. We heard a bit in some of our meetings about the hours of parking. The idea that it's difficult to do things like dinner and a show, dinner and a movie because of the timing of the permitted hours. That doesn't really allow for that kind of extended visit in the downtown, which is exactly what you want. You want people to spend time downtown. So we're suggesting opening that up a bit. And then for the visitors to Milburn who are less familiar with your downtown, there are maps available online, but they're a little bit high level, and they don't provide a lot of information in terms of how many spaces are available. Really which lots should I be looking to park in as a visitor. We think that there's some more information that could be provided there. Okay. And then one thing that actually wasn't in the prior slide on the parking, it's rather significant, is that we are suggesting for existing buildings where you have ground floor retail, ground floor restaurants that don't have off-street parking, perhaps have never had off-street parking, and you have a new business that goes in there, we're suggesting eliminating the parking requirement for them. They can't provide it. Everyone knows they can't provide it, and yet they have to go get a variance. Sometimes they have to buy permit spaces for their employees. We think that that's a barrier for entry, and is really creating a significant cost for those businesses to kind of go through that exercise of dealing with parking that they know they can't provide. We think that with a lot of the parking management strategies that we're outlining, you could be freeing up parking that you already have for use by those patrons. So other regulations we looked at, and I won't spend a ton of time on these, but I know the township has already gotten started, or it's getting started on some of these. Signage, we think that there's some tweaks there that you could ease up that process while still maintaining quality. Application fees, we think if you look at consolidating those, perhaps revising those, you could make it a little bit easier for people, not in terms of necessarily cutting the cost of fees, because those are important to cover the cost for the township, but making it a little bit easier to understand for those prospective business owners. The technical review committee that the township recently started is a service for potential businesses and applicants. We think it needs to be better marketed as such. And then lastly, when the township does do zoning changes, and there have been some recent ones that have actually made things a bit more flexible in the downtown, that the township needs to do a better job of publicizing that, educating the community, getting the word out that hey, we're making it a bit easier for you to come in and invest in our community. There's a public relations aspect to that that's important. Okay, next slide. And then another part of sort of public relations and marketing is really getting the word out that you're open for business. If you look at your neighboring communities, pretty much all of them have online or perhaps in the town hall as well a physical packet of how to come to town, how to open a business in town, what are the steps, what's the process. It gets the message out that we want you to come, we want to work with you, we want to really open the door for you to invest in our town. So we think that's an important move that Milburn should make, and it's low cost. The CID is an ideal and logical agency to oversee that. Pretty much all of your neighboring communities have CIDs, and they're who are leading that effort in those communities as well. Downtown branding we think is important, both to get the word out that Milburn is here and is ready to serve not only residents of Milburn as your downtown, but also a real player in the region. And then there's a lot that can be done on signage and placemaking and making it easier for visitors to make their way around. Outdoor and public art, I heard a little bit about that earlier tonight. That is a really important part of placemaking and is something that really does attract a lot of visitors. Okay, and I think, Eric, I'm going to turn it back to you to lead.
Yeah, so a plan without implementation is really, kind of a dream. And we were attracted to this because we felt that Milburn was really intent on trying to make this, happen and move forward. And, we developed a detailed implementation agenda, identifying responsible party, kind of ballpark, kind of cost magnitudes, and so forth. And we categorized these into three kind of buckets. One was kind of the regulatory streamlining and planning and marketing, which Susan had mentioned, which we feel is kind of low-hanging fruit. It's doesn't involve exorbitant costs or anything like that, or engineering and so forth. Capital improvements, which does involve design and engineering and requires funds and bricks and mortar and so forth, but that's a separate category. And redevelopment. And so those are the three kind of main baskets. Each one will have different kind of time horizon. and each one we know that has to kind of be kind of launched on its own trajectory. So, for instance, some of the capital improvements, you can't just go back out and build tomorrow. You have to get the design and engineering done. You have to do analysis. You have to pursue funding. And similarly with redevelopment, you have to study, make sure you have the right plan to make sure the township is staying in the driver's seat and optimizing, the opportunities. So, some of the keys to moving forward are really number one, which is showing some early successes. I think the main problem for most plans of these types, big plans, are showing that that they're actually serious and there's an intent to make them happen. And so it's important to show some early successes, not just the regulatory streamlining and the marketing actions are important to show, downtown's coming out of this very fraught period, open for business, but also some tangible things downtown. Continuous and ongoing communication. So as I mentioned, some of these projects may take, more than a couple of years. So you need to communicate where you are in the process. And then as things morph and change through different phases, to keep up the communication and keep informing, because the devil's in the details. Particularly on the timing, on the impact, and so forth. And then, as Susan said, celebrate your successes. You guys have already done tremendous things, and when they happen, make sure people know about it. And then finally, making sure that process is transparent. And so, with that, I'm going to conclude. But I just want to say one last thing, which is when we started this, which is in October, I think it was an extremely, as I mentioned, a fraught time. With the shutdowns and so forth. The term existential threat has been kind of become a cliche in the last year, I think. But I think we all felt it was very apt here. The downtown's done well. But, it's facing a lot of competition from your peer communities in the region. It's facing this kind of sea change in online shopping, which is only accelerated in the last year. And then, COVID with the shutdowns and so forth. We don't have a crystal ball, but we do know that there are some opportunities. There are more people who are going to be working downtown, who are working from home. They may be around and spending their money closer to home rather than in Manhattan. People who may not be wanting to commute on the train or may want a less dense surrounding. So maybe they want a more walkable environment, but don't want to live in the other options like Hoboken or Jersey City. And there's an opportunity to create a really walkable, pleasant environment that is able to take advantage of all that downtown has to offer. And again, just connecting those dots, we think there's tremendous potential. So anyway, I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity. I think we went on a little long, but happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Eric. We're actually going to take like a 5-minute break before we get into the questions, just so everyone can use the restroom. If you want to exit the meeting, you can exit the meeting, but we're going to take 5 minutes.
Just change his view, just so you can see the speaker view. things, if we can get, you talk to them first.
Sure.
Basically, we just need,
Thank you. Well, we've been, he's not in the pool. Right, 5 a.m. He used to fall asleep at Miss Siegel's office. You know, it should be there. I'll share that. No, I think it's gonna be great.
yeah, and if Jack wants to talk to me, let's talk tomorrow tonight. I'm gonna be a little bit busy.
Yeah, but I mean, and I think they, it's such a great thing, that it's good exposure. They can go with that. You know what I mean, like, they know songs.
I'm actually really surprised that a lot of the stations or commissions are not aware of Solfest as much as the regular residents. I think we're just so busy in our own personal lives.
No, I mean, there haven't been as many big gatherings lately.
Yeah. So I think it's a great opportunity for them.
Yeah, for sure. And the weather's looking good?
Yes, no. I mean, we're back up there. Yeah.
No, it's looking good.
Yeah, 4 degrees, looks good. Sunday it's gonna rain, so
Okay.
I'm gonna head out.
All right.
What are you guys talking about?
Oh, nothing. We wanted to see the visioning plan.
Thank you so much, Howard.
Bye, Louis. See you soon.
Hi, you. On that clipboard there.
You know what? It's very simple. I love the idea of doing things. Whatever we do there, I want it to as well. Because I'm paying the same taxes. I am still in the same town. I'm not in Irvington. Vacation here, we do this. For many years, and I heard many business schools here, they're going to leave the town. I'm telling you. And it's hard. It's hard. It is hard with what they do. It's very prejudice, very short-sighted. They don't know what they're doing. They're hurting other businesses deliberately. They have conflict of interest. They help one person and they kill another thing. It's not good. It's not good. I was told this morning, the lawyer, and he said to me, just see what the meeting is, and we're going to go through that.
Just for the point.
I'm going to stop. Every single thing is going to stop. This is not fair. When MEC came in, they closed the seafront. And when this guy, they did something, they closed the seafront. What is going on? I think Texas. It's not good. It's not fair. It's not nice. It's not clean. It's not good. You know, when they did a small outlet, they said we do this, do that.
All right, we're all here.
Yep.
All right.
Is it 5 minutes?
It's, I think it's been 5 minutes, so should I?
Yep.
We're gonna get started again. Do you wanna?
Should I tell people?
Yeah.
Sure, please. All right.
You're doing that because they want to cost you this. You want that to do, but they want to do this. So you spend your money, and you're going to do what you're going to be on ministry, and you go out to business. It is simple. It is very classy. Very classy.
What did you say? He said, make sure.
Very classy. People do that.
Oh, I'll get
Second
Botox.
hand, that's what they do.
Well, eventually, one day. Would you?
But I want this, by the time you do
Not yet.
this, you're out of business because he's helping somebody else.
I have a more difficult surgery coming next month.
Really sick. I don't know. Anyway, you want to see that? Yeah, when you see the rock, you're going to see this guy.
I'll bring it up. Thank you. All right, we're good. Oh,
No. No, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have Eric and Maurice still on as panelists?
Yes.
Yep, I am.
Okay, great. The light came back on too. All right, we are gonna open up questions from the public to the planner and Maurice, specifically about the plan. So if you have any questions, because this is the final time that they'll be joining us. So if you have specific questions about the plan, please raise your, and you're on the call, please raise your hand. Maybe people are still gone.
There you go.
Okay, we have one. We have two. Okay, people are back.
Yeah.
Everyone's coming back.
Jacqueline, you're on and able to speak.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes?
We can.
My only just a quick question. When you're talking about submerging, I guess, the lights or the utility poles, what streets are you actually planning on or proposing to do that on? Like, is it just Milburn Avenue and Essex Street, or does it go beyond that?
So, all right, so
Milburn and Essex would be the priorities. And then we're aware that, like, Lackawanna and some of the other north-south streets also have above-grade utilities. But Milburn and Essex are the priorities.
thank you. And when you are brought on to speak, please identify yourself, state your name and your address, please. And you can also ask either from Eric or Maurice to address your questions.
Mark?
Hear me? Yes. My name is Mark Linser at 24 Brooklyn Drive. And one thing to me that seems undermentioned in this plan is the train station. And I'm wondering if there's been thought towards things like placemaking or visual improvements or ADA improvements to the train station. Thank you.
So your question is about access to the train station?
ADA, I think he
Oh,
said.
specifically ADA access to the train station. We hadn't got to that level. We can certainly, make sure that we incorporate the more detailed suggestions on the train station itself. The biggest recommendation with regard to the station was on the two-way traffic on Essex would allow drop-off, number one. Number two is the bikes to the train station. But yeah, thank you for highlighting that.
Richard?
Oh, there you go.
Hi, Richard Footer, 333 Milburn Avenue. Is there a recommendation to hold a townwide presentation forum on this before there's any implementation and acceptance of the plan? It seems I've been through this before. Back in around 2008, there seemed to have been, well, there was a redevelopment plan, you're aware, and after all the hard work was done, like it's being done now, and there was a lot of enthusiasm through the township committee and those that were closely involved with it. There was a large community forum, I think it was held at the high school, and it turned out that a lot of the enthusiasm was really a representation of a small percentage of the community, and the plan never got done. And then after several construction situations in the downtown, we got complete streets, where that process was mostly breaking up into smaller work groups, then having it presented at township committee. It never followed with a large public forum, and a large part of the community, after Complete Streets was underway and done, there was a lot of criticism that the process left them unaware. And we all know what happened. A lot of you, some of you, most of you, maybe all of you were elected onto the township committee because of the dissatisfaction with the way that was handled. Now we're looking at another plan, and I'm not doing any criticizing of the plan, mind you. Now we're at the part where we've had the pandemic. We've done practically all of this virtually. We've broken up into small groups, and now we have a recommended plan. And I really think that you run the risk of, and this is a much more grandiose plan, you run the risk of finding out, because I'm looking at the numbers on the participants that called in, put comments on the wall. Really, when you look at it, that's a very small percentage of the community. And I just feel that it may or may not be representative of what the community is going to accept, be satisfied with, and not complain about. We suffered in the downtown a lot with the public outcry from the community. And if something does come of this plan, I think due diligence should be made to make sure that the majority of the community is on board with this. As far as, I would like to make a comment. I don't know if anybody's looked into this, but we did look into underground utilities. And it was when Tim Gordon was the business administrator. I remember talking to him about it. And he says, well, you know, underground utilities might look better, but it opens up a whole host of other problems, especially in an area where there's a flooding issue. So I don't know if they've, if the way of doing things is morphed into a waterproof type of environment for these wires, but it could be a big problem if that situation still exists. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Footer. Does anybody else on the call want to ask a question to the planner or our traffic engineer about the plan? Now would be the time to raise your hand. Okay. Is there anybody in the room that has any questions for the planner or the traffic engineer? And please come to the microphone and state your name and.
Yes, hi, Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Ave. I did attend the workshops and the last meeting that you had, and they were very informative. So is this evening, but I would have to say, I still feel the same lack of overall seeing the forest through the trees commentary regarding the cost. And I think you said it, or it's said on one of the pages here, Public Workshop 2. While you say there's strong enthusiasm for many concepts, right below it you say that we need more engagement, and regardless of support, participants were concerned about how these concepts will be paid for and stressed the need to set priorities. So I think that it's really difficult and somewhat disingenuous to say that there's a lot of enthusiasm when nobody's seen a cost-benefit analysis and there's no actual numbers attached to anything here in terms of cost. So when is that going to be addressed? Is that immediately going to be addressed, or is that something down the road? Or that would be my question. My second question is, statistically speaking, the number of people who attended really are not representative of the community. There's no way that claim could be made. So I think what the previous speaker said is really important. How do you plan on going about getting a much more widespread acknowledgement from the community that this is underway, that there's enthusiasm, that there's participation? And I guess my third comment really is about, just the methodology of how you go about getting the community together. I know there's COVID, I know it's difficult to meet, but given that we have good weather coming up and we have plenty of venues in town to gather people, I think it really makes a difference when people are actually physically together and they can actually talk about something as profound as the transformation, the downtown of Milburn, that we should have the opportunity. So do you have any ideas on how we can get together in a physical way and really have interactive dialogue about some of these proposals? Thank you.
I can just speak to that. That this is just the beginning. We're just starting the conversation, so I leave it up to we will discuss next steps. It's on the agenda, but this is just really we're 5 months into this conversation, so be patient, please. It's a long process.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Great job getting this all going. We've been at this for almost 30 years. Your continuity will be the success or failure of this. I do have a
Name and
question.
address.
Carrie Heller, Milburn Courtyard, also 56 Byron Road, Short Hills. I think I do have questions. I don't think this was really for comments.
There's questions. I mean,
Questions,
yeah.
but I haven't heard a question asked yet.
Okay, well,
So,
you can ask away.
Eric, are you there somewhere on the screen? Is Eric there?
Yes, I am.
Question for Eric. We've spoken before, and perhaps in session as well. The 800-pound gorilla that we don't really see is office space. The town's vacancy factor is enormous, running from Morris Turnpike down through the downtown, through the commons, and the entire town. Shoppers don't really come from the shops themselves. Yes, the shops do shop and eat food. Office use predominantly, or people coming from other towns to Lord & Taylor's, to Saks in the old days, or to Trader Joe's, and getting them to make a second stop. Eric, we've talked, and I still don't really see anything in the draft report, really anything addressing office use, and my unofficial survey on the various different websites for office use and vacancy, I think we're missing some 500 to 1,000 people coming to the downtown every day having to do with office use, and that has to do with deliveries, appointments, lawyers, doctors, medical. I don't see anything in here when you talk about the amount of square footage that we have or need for retail, and perhaps what we will need, your current conditions versus pre-COVID, what we're going to be building, residents that are going to be here. There's really nothing in here about office use. It really is streetscape. Could you help me out on that?
Well, let me just address what the township has control over, direct control over, and what things are, kind of encouraged or facilitated. The township has control over the public realm, everything in the right of way, right? The streets, the parks, and can do capital projects on its property, right? Or sell them or so forth, like the DPW. The township has control over the regulations, what's allowed, what the process is in order to obtain approval for things. And so what we are showing is possibilities with regard to land use. We are recommending a much more flexible framework, regulatory framework in the zoning and the shoulder areas particularly, because remember we had said the idea is to bring people more people downtown, whether it's to catch people from the paper mill or the parks or so forth, or further development. And so, frankly, we're flexible. The plan is flexible with regard to those uses on those infill sites, particularly on really concentrated on Essex, the shoulder, the west shoulder, if you will. And we showed as our the scenario infill residential development that could be commercial, that could be office, absolutely, Stellar. We came in saying that the market, we have to be flexible to the market.
Can I interrupt
The example of all these plans is they say, well, this should be here, this should be here. Well, frankly, the town doesn't have control, and nobody really does because it's the market. So this is a flexible plan, and I'd say that a lot of the uses that are shown along Essex could be commercial office. We're also, in our regulatory recommendations, recommending that ground level uses also be liberalized and more flexible to allow professional office and so forth as well.
I'm not meaning to be critical. What I'm looking to point out is that we are not successful right now, perhaps for another reason, and perhaps not part of your charge for this report. And your study is to deal with existing vacancy factors of, say, office space or underutilization. So that's not really your charge.
Well, I think with regard to the vacancies, we took that, that's a very, very important data point, obviously, right? And, a lot of the things that we were responding to as the drivers were, the circulation issues, the confusion, the frustration about going downtown, the parking and so forth, the quality of the public realm. And so those are things, again, that are within the township's direct control. And, while the township cannot dictate what goes in any piece of property, it can make the downtown environment more attractive to people who want to locate. And in our experience working all over, the first thing is to attract the worker, and second, the employers will follow. So if we make a downtown that's easier to navigate, to circulate, with better amenities, then we will attract people who want to locate their businesses here. And I'm with you 100% on that. Okay. That you need the daytime population, and you need people to live. We're looking at a broader mix of uses, and the offices, is definitely part of the picture. I think in the one scenario that we included, I would agree. I think that we're just showing one scenario of uses that could probably be easily flip-flop. So we probably, and I think I appreciate that your point's well taken. We should portray these numbers as just possibilities and show the ranges to highlight the fact that we're, the plan.
My suggestion would be, Mayor, just that there should be a small add-on to this if this hasn't been signatured and basically effectuated, that should get honorable mention, just something in there about the lack of people that are not here. And of course, COVID is a whole nother thing. I mean, you can go by the numbers of Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, Bagel Place, and others in the morning, just the missing people that are just not here shopping right now. That's COVID. This was all started before then. One other question, Eric, thank you. I appreciate that at the end. Regarding ratables, and that's something that seems to come up all the time. And South Orange, again, Montclair, as things get constructed, without talking about overdevelopment, we borrow at a very low rate. Alex, if I may ask you a question as part of this, we borrow now on a 10-year bond. What's our 1 point
Yes.
something? Rates
Very
have
low.
changed a little bit. Eric, would you agree that whether it's burying the utilities, for those who say that we shouldn't be spending money again after spending $6 million of taxpayer money on complete streets, there is the potential for some of these sites, as well as enhanced values of properties. I would say my property of some 24,000 feet hasn't gone up in value in 15, 20 years. That the theory, the idea of this is to create a success. A success is defined by something that we, the community, want. So assuming we don't get too much traffic, we don't get too much development, we don't have too much height, the idea of success is to create a better environment as well as increased ratables, not for that just which is being built, but for that which is also immediately or certain radius around the central core of the B4 district?
Yeah, I mean, for the downtown to improve, it can't just be the town spending money, right? That that would be kind of, I think everybody would unanimously, agree that that would be a ludicrous proposition. The idea is the township needs to do what it needs to do to keep people coming and keep businesses investing. That was the number one question we asked when we interviewed property owners and business owners is what would you identify as the top barriers to investing, whatever it might be, changing your signage, upgrading your storefront, or development. But whatever it is, it needs, the downtown needs private development, private investment and public investment, right? And it's kind of a virtuous cycle in a way.
And ratables, of course, maybe can pay for, and I want to not take up too much time, but ratables perhaps can pay for some of the improvements, if not more. The DPW has a great value, right, depending upon what we're putting on it, but certainly the sale of the property, we have to put the DPW somewhere, but something that gets put on that property is going to pay taxes to the town?
Yes, I mean, that was our last recommendation, is that how that is done is that, therein lies kind of the key to the whole thing. And, to strategically partner with a developer on that to make sure the township, again, is in the driver's seat, it's getting the maximum benefit. So not just more ratables, but there are things that that the township wants to ensure that it is getting out of any future development of the property, like, increased revenues and so forth. So, public properties are very important, to increase revenues to the town, increase tax ratables and so forth. Absolutely. And bring people in to reinforce and strengthen the downtown core businesses.
Thank you, guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else in the room want to ask questions for the planner?
Hello, good evening. Tracy Hatch. I'm a resident and also a merchant in the town.
Tracy, would you speak up for everyone?
Oh,
Thank
sorry. you. Tracy Hatch. I'm a merchant and also a resident of the town. I have some questions. When Dan talked about the enthusiasm, etc., of the new plans, and I wondered how this plan compares to the obviously enthusiasm that they got for the complete streets, which was a complete disaster, and everybody was a little disappointed, right? And I wondered how that compares, the numbers that he's getting.
Speak to that.
What was that?
I mean, the planners can't speak to that. They weren't here for complete streets.
Okay, so have anybody done any comparison?
What kind of comparison are you speaking?
Looking at, okay, so how many people did they canvass for the complete streets?
I wasn't, none of us were around for that, so.
No, but it must be in the town record, no?
I have no idea.
Okay, so we're starting from fresh then, right? Okay, so I wondered where they got the stakeholders as a resident merchant and.
Tracy, have you seen the Downtown Visioning website?
Yeah.
And because everything's there.
Okay.
And this whole process,
All right.
everything's there. So if you have, I think if you're like curious about the different stakeholders or like all the different public engagement, all the back studies, I mean, we worked really hard to get everything listed on that webpage.
Okay, all right, so I'll check that then.
Awesome.
Sorry. And then I just, something that I don't think is being considered is how disruptive any of these plans will be. Disruptive for merchants that already have suffered in COVID. So I just think that should be a consideration.
Got it.
Okay, I think that's it. And yeah, and also some of I don't know how they're deciding on their priority other than money, but obviously I'm hoping that they'll consider what areas have the most vacancies as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just so I want to just reiterate, just to the larger public that's listening to me speak right now, that on the township website is a web page devoted to this entire process, where all the public engagements, all the surveys, all the virtual map, everything, all the background information, all of that is listed there for you to check out. Okay, we have some new hands on the call. We have. So we're just going to take the hands that we see. So if you want to comment, because yes, that's fine. If you want to comment, now is the time to comment.
Hi, good evening.
Please state your name and address.
Yes, Perry Urso, 514 Milburn Avenue in Short Hills. So I just would like to ask a few questions, if I may, to the gentleman. Unfortunately, I missed part of the his presentation tonight, but some of my questions are, who are the property owners that he's actually spoken to?
I have Miss.
That's all, that's in the report. I don't have that at the tip of my fingertips. I can pull that up if you'd like. We spoke to 8.
Wait, excuse me, you spoke to how many?
We spoke to 8.
8 property owners? Were they commercial property owners?
Ms. Urso, can you please just like calm down?
I'm
your
asking a
tone?
question.
I know,
I'm a
you're-
taxpayer and
you can ask
I'm
the
asking
question,
questions.
I'm just
Yes,
asking not
we-
to interrogate.
Focus, no, we
So I'm
we-
curious, so out of the whole
spoke to
entire
8.
community, he spoke to
No.
8
No.
property owners?
No, we spoke to 8 downtown property owners. We spoke to scores and scores of residential property owners. Probably numbering in the hundreds through the various outreaches and neighborhood associations and so forth.
Okay.
So we spoke to a very small minority, but, you know, of the business property owners downtown.
Okay, and then how did you go about actually speaking to these people? What was the your source of reaching out?
Well, we, you know,
How did you contact them?
due to the COVID restrictions, we conducted those online, similar to what we were doing here. And we had interviews, we documented everything, and, you know, they were typically about a half hour, and mostly getting input. Actually, all getting input, so.
Okay, so as the mayor keeps stating, so would that information be available on the website under this vision plan?
We haven't gathered up all the, you know, various supporting documents. We were concentrating on tonight's presentation. Right now, we're writing the report, and we will have the full appendices with all of the supporting, you know, studies and so forth.
Would you, in order to have this vision plan, and is there any part of your presentation have to do with the B3 district?
No, Susan, you want to be through?
No, I don't believe so, Ms. Urso. It's primarily focused on the B4, and we don't have the zoning map in front of us, but that really was the limitation of our zoning recommendations, was the B4 district, the central business district.
Thank you. And does this tie into the Main Street, New Jersey application?
No, that wasn't right, you know, a primary consideration, no.
And what about the special improvement district? Is that part of this vision plan that you have? Is that incorporated?
No. That, our assumption is the SID, well, let's see, let me state that a little bit more completely. We did feel that there was a benefit to having some organization to carry out and partner with the township on the implementation as it advances. We found that was a key ingredient to success of the downtowns that are thriving.
To your knowledge and your expertise or professional opinion, if you can, is a special improvement district generally focused on downtowns?
Yes. Typically, yes.
Okay. So going back to the presentation that we had a few, I'm going to say weeks back, but we know how quickly a month goes. And then we were put into little groups. Yeah. So we had an admin, and again, I apologize so obviously there's really not much focus on the B3 district. So, and I had asked a question to my admin, and I apologize to the group if I missed something about the B3, but clearly the B3 has been left out. But the admin did state that there is a redevelopment project from Morris Avenue, from Walgreens to the Sunoco at Short Hills Avenue, that property would primarily be responsible for revitalizing the Upper Milburn Avenue. Would you agree with that statement, sir?
Oh, I haven't studied that. I can't speak to that. That was not the focus.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ms. Urso, this is just the plan tonight, and we have a few more. We have a very long agenda ahead of us, and we have 6 more hands raised. So if you can,
okay.
Be very
yeah, I'm almost done. Considering Mr. Heller had 18 minutes, I'm almost done. Also, I would like to ask, as far as venue and getting the entire, to echo basically what Mr. Futter was saying, getting the entire involvement or the community involvement in property owners, commercial, residential, that it's going to, have a great effect on. Don't you think it would be advantageous for the township to provide some type of a larger venue versus, because it's much more effective having a larger venue versus doing these Zoom groups, because no one really engaged in my group, but I want the committee to know that I did reach out to the high school. I have a source a contact that I contacted there, and they said that the auditorium and the stadium would be available to the township at no fee. Obviously, it would have to work around availability of dates. So, sir, would you have any objection of doing a presentation in a larger venue to get more of a voice and get it broader? I mean, you said that you spoke to 8 commercial property owners and merchants, but what about the rest of the property owners? So what are your thoughts on that, inviting people to a larger venue?
Well, I just to address the number of people that we spoke to, we tried to reach as many as we could within the budget that we're allowed. So I'm going to defer to the mayor and the 2 chairs of the committee on additional outreach beyond this, but we were trying to be as efficient, broad-reaching as we could within the budget that we have. Now, we can, obviously the number of people that we speak to is directly related to, the resources that we have to work with. So I'm completely open to do whatever it takes to help advance the plan, but it's all within the framework.
Right, and okay, and please excuse me. I do appreciate all your time and efforts that you're putting into this. It's just it's a lack of understanding and really what's going on. But so basically, you said that primarily a special improvement district is geared for downtown. So in closing, and thank everybody for your time. I'm going to ask again the Township Committee, rescind the
Thank you,
SID,
Ms. Urso.
at least
Right.
at the other districts, because there's no attention on the other.
Thank you. All right.
You have more
So I'm gonna just say that this is not a forum to attack the SID. We are talking about the vision plan. It is now 9:10, and we have a full business meeting ahead of us. So I see a few more hands. There will be time for public comment at the end. We have a full consent agenda to comment on. We're going to talk about removal of flex parking tonight. So with that, please, if you have specific questions about the plan to ask Eric or Maurice, then do so, and please be respectful of everybody's time tonight. Thank you.
Hi, Dominic Urso, 514 Milburn Avenue. Mayor Tara, you need to stop trying to. No. I have questions, but you're not going to give an attitude to taxpaying residents. You need to stop that. It's disgusting to watch.
Mayor Prupus.
You need to stop. No, you don't give people with respect, so you get Tara. My question for Mr.
We'll come back. We'll come back to
Eric.
Dominique.
Mayor, can I just add that this session that you're having is totally at your discretion.
Okay,
This
it's
is
over.
not a public hearing.
All right, so you know what? Right now, I feel like the last few comments have been so not on point that I'm just it's over for right now. Okay, we are going to move on with the rest of our business meeting. It's like this was not a forum to come and attack a very public and open process that we're not even through. We are just at the beginning. If everyone would have a little bit of patience, then maybe as a community we can come together. Okay.
Mayor, sorry. With that, would you like Eric and Maurice to then leave?
Yeah, Eric and Maurice can leave. Thank
Okay.
you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wish everyone would have been like paying attention when we put the RFP out last February. Excuse me. I wish everyone would have been paying attention when we were discussing this last February. Okay. Consent agenda items. The committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. So are there any questions or comments from the committee in regards to any of the consent agenda items? Okay. There's no questions? No. Are there any members of our public that have any questions about the consent agenda items? And when you speak, when you come to the microphone to speak, please reference the exact consent agenda item you are talking about. And you will have 3 minutes, and we'll talk about what public comments is.
May I?
1 second. You may not.
Just.
Public comment period is a time for you to state your comments. It is not a dialogue between the public and the Township Committee. Our contact information is available on the Township website, and you are welcome to contact us directly. When you are ready to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and address. At 2.5 minutes, you will hear the buzzer and will have 30 seconds to wrap up your comments. When the second buzzer goes off at the full 3 minutes, your allotted time is over. It is with consensus from this Township Committee that we will strictly adhere to 3-minute time limit for public comments, and no person is permitted to yield his or her time to another speaker. Let's remember that we're all neighbors and that we all are here because we love our town. And let's also remember that we are acting in full transparency, and that while we welcome conversation, please do not attack us. Thank you.
My name is Jeffrey Feld. I live at 11 Alexander Lane. I am a pre-Midtown Direct citizen. It is exactly 9:17 that citizens' comments are now beginning on the consent agenda. I sent you a letter with various questions. We'll start on Bill List Resolution 21-087. I listed 4 checks I would like to know what they're used for, especially the Hellering-Lindemann check that we were told that they were special federal investigation counsel and that investigation duties ended almost a year ago. What is NPSM Emergency Services for $321,671.26? Why do we pay the Township of Maplewood $28,298.60? And who's Winning Strategies Washington, and why do we pay them $5,000? As to Resolution 21-090, that's the Short Hills Garden Apartment Channel Restoration. What is that project? And can that be really, why is the whole town paying it, and why isn't it a special assessment for that property if it's being benefited? Because I think the issue about special assessments ties into the importance of the SID. And I think we should have a discussion as to special assessments. As to the Parklet Resolution 21-091, I wrote 2 questions. Is if you have certain, let's say on Essex Street, and you have 2 competing restaurants, and there's only a limited number of spaces, who determines who gets the spaces? Is it first come, first serve? Who makes the criteria? Is it RBA? I mean, I think we need to be very specific as to what criteria are using when there's only limited spaces in front of those restaurants, because there are several spaces, whether it's Essex Street or going down, I guess, I don't know, going past, where it's closed the standard, where you have the various restaurants. Who gets first come, first serve? As to closed executive sessions, meeting minutes, this is very important. The public needs to know. This afternoon, I received the second set of closed executive session minutes. These minutes need to be posted on a public website immediately by tomorrow. The people that live on Chatham Road need to read some of those minutes and some of the comments that were made about their allegations regarding that project. In addition, based on those minutes, it ties into the vision plan. This town considered to buy certain property on JFK. That's subject, I think, now to the litigation that came out last week where the bad faith allegations came in. There are things that are in the minutes that the public needs to see. Also, the delay. The minutes do reflect that they were approved 2 years after they were done. The public needs to see the minutes because it reflects on the vision plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feld. Is there anybody else who has any questions or any public comment about consent agenda items? Resolution 21-07 through 21-095, and please identify your name, your address, and what resolution you are talking to.
Okay. Yep, Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart. I have a question on 21087. Does the Township Committee have the authority to carve out certain items on the bill list payments, and so that they can be approved separately or turned down separately? I think we've asked this and we don't have an answer to that question. Does the Township Committee also have an ability to escrow certain bill list payments? I think it would help if we could understand the budget line disclosures and groupings on the bill list. It's nice to have the bill list, but it's difficult to really understand how they all fit together. So it would be really helpful, now that we do get the bill list, to understand how they are grouped together. Also, when will the Township Committee disclose all the salary and wages paid during an interim bill list period so that we see everything? It looks like we spend X number of millions based on the bill list that's there, but it's much more than that when you include salary and wages and other payments related to employees. Could we please have those on our bill lists that are disclosed? And then who does approve and review the payment requisitions on the bills that are paid? So those are my questions on that resolution. I'd just like to also agree as far as resolution 21094 on the closed executive session meeting minutes. I think what Mr. Feld had to say is really critical. I mean, there's information in there that's really important to the public in terms of understanding what this Township Committee is approving, what they're discussing. And for us not to have those for years let alone months, and not have those posted publicly for everyone to look at when those items actually directly affect votes and items that you're actually working on. I think that's really egregious. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the people on the line to speak directly to a resolution listed in the consent agenda. Ms. Carlucci, you're on mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. You can.
Sorry, I had a question just about the downtown vision plan, so I'm just actually sending you an email. So
Okay, or you can come back at public comment at the end, or I'm happy to answer any of your emails or
okay, just, I know, I feel bad because it gets out of hand, but I just don't have time to wait while people are screaming. I just had a quick little question, so I'll just send you an email.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Carlucci.
Hi, Dominique Urso, 514 Milburn Avenue. I have a few statements and questions on consent agenda items. I just want to say, if anyone feels it's screaming or this and that, it's because the township committee cuts us off, and we always have to be on the defense. Okay? So I have a few things. I have a few things to say. Yes, please stop cutting me off. And what you did to me before is despicable. I just want to say, we're tax-paying residents. You don't do that. We want to know where our money goes. Simple. It's wrong. Okay. My first thing I'd like to address is for 21-096. Is the township required to have a SID for the Main Street program? And why was the SID budget taken off the agenda tonight? I would also like to say,
otherwise, if you cannot follow the meeting outline, we'll have to go to the next caller. So resolutions 21-087 through 21-095. Do you have a comment on any one of those resolutions? Okay, we'll come back to you. Would you like to bring on the next public comment on consent agenda items 21-087 through 21-095? Please identify which resolution you are commenting on. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Perry Urso. I'm calling about agenda items 21-090. I believe that you spoke, I'm not sure, earlier about the purpose of hiring and awarding Montana Construction Corp. Did you speak about that earlier in the meeting?
We have not, and we will address it at the end of public comment.
Okay, thank you. So I was compelled to contact Montana Construction Corp., who was being awarded $521,000. Are all the TC members aware of the purpose of the award? And I learned that this company are, what their profession is, underground water utility contractors. So my questions regarding that is, where's the location of this project? Why has this company been hired? What is the township's relationship with this property? And why is Milburn absorbing this fee? So I'll wait for those questions. Perhaps they'll be answered later. Consent agenda items 21-091, 21-093. So my questions are we covering up for the elephant in the room? Does your policy add further financial burden or hoop jumping to already suffering businesses? 3, does the policy give the establishment within the Main Street closures an advantage over the other businesses? Number 4, are the businesses within the Main Street closures also subjected to the same policies? Number 5, who provides the lighting for Main Street? And who pays for the electricity for that lighting? Number 6, will these parklets encourage patrons to filtrate our neighborhoods for the lack of parking? Number 7, has there been a traffic study performed and is it available to the public? And also the other comments are, do we have any other reports from the fire department, first aid squad, the police department for the safety and well-being of the of the patrons and of the community members that are just walking around. So hopefully I can get these answers to my questions. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Okay. Alex, can you please answer the question about, can you inform us all about the award contract 21-090?
Of course, Mayor. The township is awarding a contract for the Short Hills Garden Apartment channel reconstruction. Certainly, it's a specific location. However, it is the township's responsibility. It is not on the Short Hills Gardens property. It is a outflow of stormwater, which makes it our responsibility. The township had researched this and actually had several meetings even with Short Hills Garden to make sure that that determination was correct. We have been contacted by the Department of Environmental Protection regarding this project because it is needed to be done as a result of its deterioration in the outflow of stormwater, as well as a sewer line that runs parallel to this project. Montana Construction has been awarded the project because we did an open competitive bidding process in which Montana Construction was the lowest responsible bidder, and we are required, if we are going out to bid, to make sure that we award to the lowest responsible bidder, which in this case is Montana. That is the project, the reconstruction of a flume to make sure that stormwater is carried safely, effectively, and without damage throughout the municipality.
Mr. McDonald, you had said you did some research on that. Was it something that a previous township committee group had agreed to doing when that building was created? How did that come about?
No, this was as a result of, we have many flumes throughout the municipality in various different locations and neighborhoods. And at times you have to question the responsibility of that and whose property it's on and, who would be responsible for the improvements. So in this case, that was done, and we made sure we vetted it prior to going through with a project that would cost $521,000.
Thank you.
Yes, and Committeewoman Miggins, that was several years ago, and there was, I remember, an enormous amount of research done by our engineering department. It was a huge amount of research to make sure that the township was responsible for that. And what I learned in that time, that there are these underwater channels all throughout our town, especially in the Glenwood section, and some are easements, some are the property owner's responsibilities, but many are the town's responsibilities. So this is the town's.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody on the committee want to address any of the other questions or comments that were made during public comment for the consent agenda items?
I'll just make one comment. I think what happens, people get interested in township committee meetings in different parts of their life, what's going on, what stirs interest. So a lot of these things that we are talking about this year have been ongoing. A lot of things that happened last year had been ongoing. Some things are brand new. Some we are working on for a very long time. Then they finally come to fruition and have to be repaired. So I think that, to say that this is something that happens in a moment is so not true. And, there's people who've been like Mr. Footer, who's been coming to meetings, or Mr. Heller for years and years and years, and are familiar with things we talk about. This is my 5th year here, so, I'm familiar with a lot of things at this point. But to our newcomers who we welcome, I think tonight there's 40 people, has it gone down? And, the more you come to meetings, the more you involve yourself in the town, these things won't seem so out of the blue to you, and you'll see how hard we work and how hard all of our employees in town hall have to do to make anything happen. And as I learned, things move slowly, and there's a lot that goes behind it. So, be a participant. And one more thing about the vision plan, I put all over my Facebook page. If you don't participate, you can't complain. So you need to be an active participant as a township resident or a business owner, and you need to know what's going on. And I think in the past, maybe people weren't as aware. So please stay an active participant in our meetings.
Thank you. Okay. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-087 through Resolution 21-095? Which,
Mayor, sorry, you took one, you took,
2192 out.
thank you.
Correct.
I took, and removing of that 2192.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
May I get a roll call?
Ms. Miggins?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Okay, on to the next resolution, 21-092. Authorize execution of revocable license agreement. Mr. McDonald, would you like to explain?
Sure. At times we get requests, as again, speaking of these, flumes and different things, we also have quite a few easements throughout town regarding storm sewer pipes and storm drainage pipes and things like that. Generally, these are for underground infrastructure, but we do maintain an easement, and sometimes that is on private property, and residents want to have the beneficial use of that area of easement, and so they ask for permission to do that. In this case, it's a fence being put over an easement, and we could get into a revocable license agreement with that property owner.
Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 21-092? Are there any comments?
I'm sorry, one question. So if they're putting a fence on a property easement, it is their responsibility forever to take care of that? Maybe just so in case anybody else wants to do this in town, and really understands this.
Sure. So what happens is, yes, certainly it's their fence, they're building it, but also if there's any reason that we must go into that property to do work, to fix a pipe, to get into the ground or whatever it might be, our removal of the fence, although obviously we'll be as respectful and clean as possible, but is going to be their responsibility to also fix.
So if we have to remove the fence, they know that they are going to have to put that fence back at their own expense.
Correct. That's part of this
written out
agreement.
in this agreement.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there any comments from the public on resolution 21-092? Okay. May I have a motion to approve resolution 21-092?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins?
Abstain.
Mr. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Mayor Purvis?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 21-096, authorize participation in the Main Street, New Jersey program. Are there any, would you like to explain this,
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor
Yes.
Wasserman?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a statement that I'll read. This resolution is part of a larger application. Let me just take this off for 1 second. Explain it. This resolution is part of a larger application that Explore Milburn is preparing in order for our township to receive the coveted Main Street designation from the state. Only 21 other municipalities have this important designation. As a Main Street municipality, Milburn will now be open to hundreds of thousands of dollars of new grants and technical assistance. These potential grants could address critical infrastructure upgrades along with other improvements for our parks, or potentially helping us adding biking opportunities for our residents. It is a total win-win for the township if we're able to obtain this. In 2020, Main Street designated district management organizations received $3 million in CARES Act funding. So if with my math, that's an average of 142,000 for those Main Street towns. So there's a very, very big upside, to get this designation. It's a long application, and we would also receive a coordinator from the state that would help us, get grants and technical assistance. I would just also want to point out, Mayor, that as part of the technical assistance, that there's in-depth volunteer and executive director training, advanced training on specific district management issues, including marketing, business recruitment, volunteer management, and historical preservation. There's professional consultant visits to develop each community's strengths and plan for success, small business development services for local business owners, marketing and public relations services for local businesses and Main Street organizations, architectural design services for businesses and property owners, educational materials including manuals, slide programs, links to local, state, and national Main Street community networks. And I just want to highlight that other Main Street townships, such as Booton Main Street, received $586,000 to create an outdoor amphitheater and community space appropriate for social distancing activities. Downtown Westfield Corporation received $148,000 to create an 8-park project to help businesses during the holiday shopping season. Summit Downtown received $120,000 to create small business grant initiative called Sustained Summit Program. Montclair received $863,000 to provide equipment and supplies for the street closure program. So all of these neighboring towns that have the Main Street designation, receive grants that really help the townships, and a lot of these grants could apply to Milburn. We also have have street closures. We also can use technical assistance. We also have Taylor Park. There's a lot of different things that we could apply for, and the Main Street designation would open up a lot of doors. And I think it's a win-win for the township. I don't see any downside, and the whole thing is trying to get that designation.
Great. Okay. Do any of the my fellow committee members have any comments or questions for Deputy Mayor Wasserman? Nope. Okay. Does anybody? Are there any comments from the public?
Yes, my name is Jeffrey Feld. You have my address. I sent you a letter. There's certain questions I have because I've been through the Main Street application process in another municipality. It is shocking and outrageous that the application was not attached, that the public can see it. Because one of the representations that you are making is that you have buy-in by the community and the business community. Typically, a SID is a prerequisite for a Main Street application. Question is, why was it excluded? How are you making the finding in your resolution that you have community buy-in? Where's the feasibility study? I know a lot about feasibility studies in Main Street, New Jersey. I know who Jeff Bueller is, and he knows who I am. What type of designation are you seeking? Partnership or full-time designation? Who's going to sign this application on behalf of Milburn and make the representations of warranties to the state under penalty of perjury? What's the geographical footprint of this Main Street, New Jersey application? Is it the core area that we heard of the vision plan? Is it the entire SID? What is it? No one knows. Maybe Mr. Wasserman knows, but he won't share it with the public. You know that the public, are you disclosing in your application the Bear Properties litigation? That there's question about the validity of the SID, and that this council has received written questions and oral questions regarding the validity and various parts of the budget that the public has never received answers to. That's really my questions. There's real issues here. I can't answer these questions because the application was not attached, but you're making representations to the state, and if I was a public official, I'd be very careful what representations and warranties you're making to the state in this environment.
Thank you, Mr. Feld. Is there any other, Ms. Stone, would you like to make a public comment on Resolution 21-096? Ms. Stone, you're muted. No, not muted. All right, we will come. Ms. Urso has her name up, so we'll come back to you, Ms. Stone. Her hand is like faintly risen. I know. Maybe.
Dominique Urso, 514 Milburn Avenue. You disgust me in so many ways, and I have, yes, on this consent agenda and many things, but if you cut me off of my 3 minutes again, you will be personally liable for limiting my freedom of speech. You personally. Don't do it.
This is not appropriate for this body.
It's not appropriate what she does. Thank you. Let me ask my questions. Consent agenda item 21-096. Why was the SID budget taken off this agenda tonight? I would like to know. My second question is,
Hold on, 1 second. Deputy Mayor Wasserman?
Yeah. We pass interim rules that speak to decorum in terms of how we're spoken to, in terms of being spoken to respectfully. And if somebody calls in and they say that I discussed them, this is not appropriate, behavior, and I object to it.
It's disruptive to the public meeting process, and under Open Public Meetings Act, you have authority to reasonably restrict comments in your discretion. You also are not required to have a public hearing on a resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Foss. With that, we will then move. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-096?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Miggins?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Mayor Prupus?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Ordinance number 257D-21. Ordinance amending Chapter 7 Traffic of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Milburn. So the proposed amendment to Chapter 7 Traffic Code of Milburn's General Ordinances is to establish rules, regulations, and fees with regard to a new residential shopper parking permit. This permit would be made available to Millburn Township residents to provide enhanced convenience to patronizing any of the township's business districts where a fee may be charged for on-street or lot parking. This permit will also incentivize residents to shop local and support township businesses. By purchasing an annual residential shopping parking permit, holders will be permitted to park in designated shopper spaces for the allotted time without paying by meter or pay station. Time limits will still be enforced under this permit. Rules for use will be established by ordinance to avoid use by businesses or any abuse of the program that would detract from its goals and purposes. All right, so I'm super excited about the resident shopper parking permit. Committeewoman Miggins, you sit on the parking committee with me ad hoc. Do you want to say anything about it?
I do. I love the idea. I don't know, most people may know this or don't know this, but every time you use the machines, it's 50 cents for an hour, 50 cents for a half an hour. The company's keeping 25 cents. So I know I spend at least, my gosh, I'm in town so much, I spend at least, $30 a month just in parking. So I feel that this could be a benefit because the whole $60 gets to go to the town. So we're not splitting it with that company. And I think to me that's a win-win. And I can't tell you how many times I've put, because we have a few cars, and I'll go to pay and I put the wrong license in. I don't think to move to the next license if I don't have it saved. So, and some people don't remember their license plate number. So I think it's a win-win for the whole town, and I think it's a win-win for our residents, less tickets to worry about.
Right, it's exciting. Alex, do you have anything that you want to speak to?
No, just that these will be available on April 1st. We're prorating the purchase of the permit, assuming the passing of the resolution, and also we are looking to have these available to be filled out online and submitted online.
One thing, Mr. McDonald, when the people are purchasing them, where are they to place them in their cars?
So they are going to place them in the back windshield or the back driver side window. We have a little diagram on the application as well as a miniature car in the tax collector's office that displays where it's supposed to go.
So they'll know where to put it. Terrific.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I also say this would be a really big positive for the township. It's also a huge positive for our merchants And we have to just continue to lower these barriers to our residents and to our businesses. Got to make it so easy for people to patronize our stores, our restaurants, and just make it easy. And I think this does that.
Great. So I declare the hearing open. And I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with the law. May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call?
Ms. Miggins?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes, please.
Mayor Prupus?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and then approval of the parking permit fees pursuant to the provisions of the revised general ordinance of the Township of Milburn. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-097?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Miggins?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Mayor Prupus?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor Prupus, I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2571-21, an ordinance by the Township of Milburn in the County of Essex, New Jersey, prohibiting the operation of any class of cannabis business within its geographical boundaries, and amending Section 604 of the Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. The purpose of this ordinance is to implement the provisions of the newly adopted New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Enforcement Assistance and Marketplace Monetization Act, which legalizes the recreational use of marijuana and which permits municipalities to prohibit the operation of marijuana establishments, which would otherwise be permitted to operate within those municipalities, provided that they act to do so within 180 days of the effective date of the act. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item, and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, April 20th, 2021.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins?
Yes?
Ms. Eglo?
No.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Mayor Prupus?
Yes.
Thank you.
May I say one thing? I'm not a speech. I just want to point out it's very ironic that you will be passing a ban on cannabis on 4/20, which is National Cannabis Day. Just saying. If you decide to go that route.
Isn't it ironic?
It's a bit ironic, but life is full of ironic things. Yeah, okay.
Mayor, I'd like to, let's see. I'd like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2572-21, Ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7, Traffic, Section 7-29, speed limits of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Milburn. The ordinance revision to reduce the speed limit on Milburn Avenue between Wyoming Avenue and Maplewood Township border from 35 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour for improved safety of motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists while traveling in the township. This revision will bring consistency to the entire length of Milburn Avenue in the Township of Milburn to have a speed limit of 25 miles per hour. And I will say that this has been an ongoing discussion for, from what I remember, for several years. We lower the speed a little bit. It definitely will make Milburn Avenue safer, and I think it's well thought out, and I think it's taken us a long time to do this. So I definitely think it's a good idea.
Do you know what the speed limit is on the Maplewood border heading up to Wyoming, to the end of Wyoming Avenue?
I don't.
Valley, you mean Valley from
But we're doing this on Wyoming Avenue.
No, 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 no.
On Milburn Avenue.
Milburn,
just the-
yeah.
Oh, so I thought we were
A
on
very
Wyoming
small
Avenue.
patch of Milburn Avenue.
Yes.
I know.
Okay, that was the
Okay.
last one. Sorry.
You move?
Yeah, fine.
Mhm.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item, and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, April 20th, 2021.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Miggins?
Yes?
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Mayor Prupus?
Yes.
Thank you.
You can mention it. Yeah. All right. We are now on to old business, and we are going to, the committee's going to discuss the downtown vision plan and the next steps. So, and I had, alluded earlier in the meeting that this is really just at the beginning of this process. So
Next steps. Okay.
excuse me, I know, one side. Do you have mine? No? Okay.
You take your notes.
I did. I took like a ton of notes, and now it's all right. I have it all in my head. Somewhere. Anyway, so, here we go. So many papers. Okay. So it seems like, we did the vision plan, and there are some recommendations, and all of them need further discussions, further committees, further processes, further public engagement, in which hopefully the COVID restrictions will relax. We'll be able to meet in person, outdoor. We'll look at the different venues in town. We'll talk about it many, many times. We'll continue to do an incredible job, I think, at really engaging, communicating. And if anybody feels like they have recommendations on how we could better communicate and get people to participate, please let me know, because we've all been trying. So if you have them, send me an email. I'm so happy to hear your ideas, and we will continue talking. But so that, 4 things were presented tonight: the Taylor Park entrance and gateway, two-way circulation, the DPW redevelopment area, perhaps relocation of parts of it. Just, it needs a further feasibility study and strategy study, and then all the policy planning and marketing recommendations, and the business advocacy and the zoning. So, there are 5 of us up here, and I was thinking that everybody could kind of take a piece of it, and I'll weave through it with you. But so, Taylor Park entrance, gateway, Committeewoman Eglo, would you be willing to kind of steer that process
Yes,
along?
thank you.
Amazing, thank you. Two-way circulation in the downtown. Committeeman Vinayak, would you be willing to kind of take that and move that along?
Sure, Mayor.
Amazing, thank you. Committeewoman Miggins, the DPW site, would you be willing to take that and move that along?
It would be my pleasure.
Amazing. And Deputy Mayor Wasserman, you are already doing so much work with all of the policy planning, marketing recommendations. You are well on your way, so you'll continue that?
Yes, Mayor, that would be great.
Amazing, and I will weave through with all of you, and again, this is the beginning of the conversation, so pay attention, and we will keep communicating out as much information as we possibly can. And next, removal of flex parking. All right. So this, this has been an ongoing conversation since flex parking was put in the fall of 2016. And It has come up a few times, and it's coming up again tonight to have a discussion about it first at the committee. I'm sure public comments will be made as well. And so I know that I think that flex parking should be removed. I think that there's ways that we can do it, the ways we can plan for it and communicate it and manage it so that it's not a big disruption. I lived through it. I have a business right there, so I'm fully aware of kind of all sides of this issue. So I wanted to bring it up, see how you're all feeling about it. Not necessarily, we don't need to make any determinations or decisions tonight, but I think it's important for us to start this conversation because the way I see it, there's really only one time to do it, and it's in August, and it's at night, and if we are going to do it then, and if we're going to do it during 2021, then we need to start that planning now because we need to put it out for RFP, and there's a full planning. So, and if it happens that, let's just kind of see where everybody's at and public comment. And again, we're not making a decision about it tonight. Do any of my fellow committee members want to say anything about the removal of flex parking?
Well, we had done a lot of work on that a couple of years ago. We have most of the preliminary work available. We know how to back it out, to have it done, to start on a certain date with very careful planning and a lot of communication with our merchants on the street. I think it is an absolute necessity.
Does anyone else want to say anything about this?
Yeah. Yes, I will tell you, I ran on this, and I felt very strongly that it was a mistake. I dented my own car at different points, on the flex parking. I think, when we talk about lowering barriers for people coming into the township and parking and getting in and out, this is not part of that. This really is hard for people, especially older people, to park on it. People with SUVs, it's just not an easy thing to do. But I will echo Committeewoman Eglo. The devil is in the details, and it has to be done with precision. It has to be done carefully. It has to be done with the business community. There's no matter how much you try, there's going to be some pain in terms of traffic or whatever. So we have to really work hard and be extremely careful. And so with that caveat, I'd be really supportive of doing it. But there has to be hands on the ground, somebody supervising it, and somebody on the other end of the phone to take the call.
I also have had many complaints from people. When are you going to fix that downtown and that parking? I do hear it a lot, those spots. And they are hard. I'll drive around rather than have to park up on them.
Yep.
But I agree. I think we have to be so mindful of our merchants. And if we could do it at night in August and look for grant money, I think that would be terrific if we could do that. But if that's possible, but I think it's something to look at. I really do.
I think Town Hall has so much of preliminary work that we did, Alex, a couple of years ago. It's probably so close to be able to back out the timeline and the communication, key. But, I don't know if we could get grant money. That's not my expertise, but the point is, it's something that we have to admit was not right. And we have to bite the bullet and make it right.
I'm so glad everybody's talking about grant money and what it'll cost. And as everyone else mentioned, that there's so much work that has already been done in the past. I was able to review some of the work and the cost on it. But I also agree, let's make sure, first of all, to my understanding, we're talking about Milburn Avenue and not the Main Street.
Correct.
And on the Milburn Avenue, what we take out is not it's about maybe $300,000, $250,000 to $300,000 cost to repair and bring it back. But very importantly, businesses on that street, if we ask them and ask all of them how they feel about it, and it's about 4 weeks of work. So I've looked at all that, and whether we get the grant money or not, we can make that available. And when I say I'm in finance subcommittee, whenever there is cost that comes through, I am one of those people who review it thoroughly. And when we go into the general comment, there were some other comments that came in on the bill list that we are going to talk about that we missed giving an answer on. But I will be on support on this as well, based on my review of the detail on this project.
Okay, so I think, we have public comment tonight. We'll have our next meeting. We have a lot of work done in town hall. Maybe we can start with a timeline just so that we know if it's even possible, and then we'll just continue the conversation. And please feel free to email me, email any one of us. I have office hours on Thursdays by Zoom or phone, 9 to 11. So, we'll continue this conversation. An update on the business advocacy zoning regulations. Mr. McDonald, are you going to give us an update?
Yes. So I've circulated and shared a draft of the zoning revisions to the township committee. Now, this is just a sort of first pass at this. And this involves some of the recommendations that you heard tonight, and some of the things that we've been working on for some time. One being some additional uses within all the districts, B4, B3, B2. And also the permitting of restaurants as a permitted use, and then which has been brought up before, and I'll explain a little bit of the change that has been addressed there. And that is also in all of the business districts. And lastly was and you heard this in the presentation, was the elimination of the parking requirement for the B4 downtown district. But not to say that if you have parking on your property, that still must be maintained and exist. In other words, you can't just knock down and build on the property just because you don't have to have parking elsewhere. You have parking available. You should be using it. So just real quick, back to the restaurant as a permitted use. One of the things that came up the last time that we attempted this ordinance was concerns that there would be no protection for the residents that do live in and around these neighborhood business zones to have the protection of a land use board that would be reviewing an application. This addresses that, in that it does not eliminate the 125 foot, and it does establish some additional conditions or supplementary conditions to those to that business district. In particular, B3 is one of concern, which because it includes Chatham Road, it includes Upper Milburn Avenue, which borders Meadowbrook, as well as a small portion of Morris Turnpike is a B3 zone, which still borders Meadowbrook. And so we wanted to make sure that we were looking at that and addressing that. And again, this is first blush. This is sort of our first look at it and attempting to put something together. But it does address additional uses, the restaurants as a permitted use, and an elimination of the parking downtown parking requirement.
Got it. Thank you. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for Mr. McDonald at this point?
I have one. Mr. McDonald, you didn't touch on this, but while we're changing some of the rules, aren't we also looking at also strengthening some of the rules regarding noise and pollution, rodent abatement? I mean, are we looking at that also?
Yeah, that is also being addressed. However, there are certain limitations to be able to address noise further than what we do, as well as, I mean, we do have Board of Health regulations regarding rodent abatement and different things. But yes, we are looking into those additional ordinances. But more so, in this ordinance, it's about addressing the buffer between a commercial property and the residential zone, as well as making sure that trash, which is one question that has actually needs to be developed further at this point. But regarding trash and where that's located and how that's located and what container that's located in and things like that, as well as filtration systems, and the way that it's referenced to the mechanical code and what needs to be done for filtration there. One of the other things that was brought up is in the and so I've also already kind of made a first look at this and some things that were included in this, which was to allow brew pubs in the B4. However, it was also put in to allow brew pubs in the B3, and I think that that's kind of a non-starter. So I think that should be eliminated in the B3. So again, just kind of going through this, making sure that we're working towards the goals of the committee to make things easier for businesses to get in here, in particular restaurants, which I think is a real goal.
So, I was going to ask you, can you explain then what is changing and what is remaining the same with the 125-foot setback?
So what changes is that the restaurant becomes a permitted use unless it's within 125 foot, and that 125 foot is from the building to the residential property line. Mm-hmm. If it's within that 125 foot and it meets the conditions, the supplementary conditions, it will go before the planning board. If it is unable to meet those supplementary conditions, then it will go before the zoning board.
So how is that different?
It's not really all that different for that particular zone. Mm-hmm. For the B3 zone and because much of the B4 zone is not impacted, but it is because we in our business zones have restaurants as a conditional use in every single one of our business zones. Mm-hmm. However, in the B4 downtown, there's about 7 properties that have that truly abut a residential zone. Mm-hmm. But there are some that may be within that 125 foot. But they might be able to meet those conditions. They have a 6-foot buffer. They have they have the right filtration. They don't have lighting that's over things like that. That are in this being drafted or whatever. But in the B3 zone in particular, there's a difficulty because of how close the commercial zone is to the residential zone. And so that 125 foot remains because on the south side of Milburn Avenue, the north side of Milburn Avenue, as well as Morris Turnpike, they're very close. And so, one of the ways to, I think, be successful in this is to make sure that we're getting the permitted use where we can, and we're keeping the protections to the residents where we can. But it's not an impossibility for a restaurant to come in and meet certain supplementary conditions that offer that protection as well, and they have a planning board application.
So they can still go to the planning board, they can still decide they want to open a restaurant along Milburn Avenue or Morris Avenue, but they will have to go before the planning board and meet those conditions.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we have a timeline on kind of the progression of this?
You mean where it's going?
Yeah, just the ordinances and when we're gonna.
Yeah, so I think some additional vetting is necessary, and I don't want to rush. I think it's important that the township committee and the township take its time on this. We attempted to do this last year, and we want to make sure that we get through a process that if people want to have discussions on it or talk to.
Are we gonna have some public information?
Yeah, I think that would be important. Yeah.
Okay, so do we know from Paul when we're gonna get? We don't know yet.
I don't have any of that information yet, but I think that is important.
We'll have
Yeah.
some public information sessions on this before it all happens,
Yes.
and we'll keep everyone posted. Okay.
Yep.
Great. New business. The policy on meeting with township officials. Ms. Voss, can you address this, please?
Sure. We drafted this policy for the committee's consideration, and basically it does 2 things. It talks about discussions with committee members about confidential matters, and also establishes the committee members' rights to consent to locations for a business meeting for discussion. And so you can, if you all agree about this policy, you don't necessarily have to do anything formal with it. You don't have to have a resolution or an ordinance, for example. Alex could potentially just have it published on the website so that the public is notified about where and when you will take meetings, business meetings, in your official capacity.
Great. Does any of the committee members have any questions, comments that they would like to make? Thoughts? Are you all, does anyone have any opposition to the policy? Are you in favor of the policy? You know,
Fine.
does anyone want to speak to any of this?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, you know, I'm happy to speak to people, you know, people email me, set up calls, whatever, but to have somebody come to your place of business per se, you know, when you're, you know, we're also making a living when we're not doing public service, but to have somebody come to your place of business and to, you know, to want to discuss town business, you know, it's I think it's going over the line, and it's not fair and it's not right, because it should be, the business of the town should be done, you know, professionally and appropriately.
Got it. So the idea of consent.
Yeah.
That, you know, you just kind of get consent before walking into someone's business and wanting to have a conversation with them about town business. All right, I'm in favor of the policy.
I don't have a place of business in town, but I understand
It
for
would be
those
like
who
someone
do.
coming to your house and
Of
knocking
course.
on your door,
Oh.
you know where you live.
Well, that's true. That's
Would
true,
you-
yeah.
I
No.
could, you know, someone could come to your door and knock and be
Right.
like, I want to talk about the removal of flex parking with you.
But that doesn't affect, let's say, a neighbor when we're all out walking our dogs and they want to talk about something.
I just think it's nice to be like, hey, you know, Committeewoman Eglo, Ms. Eglo, like, do you have a minute? Can I talk to you about township stuff? And then you're like, yes, now's a good time, or you know what, it's not, but we can schedule a meeting at town hall.
I think that's fair and reasonable. I don't think anybody could find fault with that.
Okay, we're in agreement.
Of course.
Awesome.
Agreed.
Agreed?
Agreement.
Mr. Committeeman Vanyaya?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, okay. I do want to just say that, you know, there's been questions about the bid budget, and it is going to be introduced with the township budget at the next meeting. You know, we all learned at was that the last meeting? It's been so much. Was that two meetings ago?
I don't know.
One meeting ago that we learned of Ryan's resignation. So I felt that it was really important for us to just take a moment, let the SID kind of figure out their path forward. I think they have, and they'll introduce the budget on
Yeah, at the next meeting.
at the next meeting, and we will also introduce the town budget. Yes.
Mayor, sorry, if you would, I failed to report on one thing, and I know it's not my part of the meeting or new business, but I just wanted to congratulate Jesse Molman.
Oh, yes.
Jesse has been promoted to the assistant administrator, so now we'll have a little bit more, you know, tutelage from me. I don't know if that's good or bad, but welcome aboard, Jesse, and best of luck. So.
Congratulations.
Welcome,
And
welcome.
you've worked very
Congratulations,
hard.
Jesse.
People that know you've worked very hard, and just speaking for myself, because I know you, I'm very proud of you. Anyway, I digress.
And a product of our schools.
That's right.
And one of our own. Okay, we're done embarrassing.
You've moved upstairs. You've moved up, literally.
Well deserved.
That's
Well
Amen.
deserved. Okay, we're done.
All right,
Make sure you make
we're
us
not-
proud, Jesse.
No pressure.
We are not done, but we are going
Oh,
to
we're
take a
not?
5-minute bathroom break before we get to public comment.
Oh, right.
We're not done. We're not done.
Thank you.
Who knows?
Oh, it did? Was it Snap?
Yeah.
5 minutes for the bathroom and water.
I'm supposed to hold the door.
Yes.
Chivalry.
Good luck, guys. Just as a comparison. I guess it is a generic.
I used to get flack, just jokes, because
I subscribe to the ledger, looking through the sheriff's sale.
Public notices, and I buy it every day, just read public notices. Find out what we're doing.
Big congrats. I'm doing good. Long meeting. I'll watch public comment for the I knew this. I was really curious about that last item. Officials. That's why I stayed. It's good. Just got those midterms. We're learning. A lot of people, a lot of my friends have COVID and are locked down. So I had to be ready. And I'm getting a test today. And I actually had to get another test today to submit to this because it's still recording. Even though, yes. Review right now, they can't speak. Yeah, well, I don't know. Not that but they don't think they do. A lot of people have used it.
That's not the case.
How we might get that and whether or not they got public. Somehow, you're asking to pass along your kid. I'm not sure if you're here just for tonight.
Yes, just for tonight, but, the policy that they just adopted actually doesn't say anything about what you're suggesting. So you're talking about matters of confidentiality and not banning conversations with people and particular people generally just subjects. So, I'll talk to Kate about it and we can have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Promotion, right? Yeah. That's what you want to spend it. Oh my goodness. But I have and that's why so our feelings are where I mean we'll be done May 15th. It's weather is
I don't know what the conversation was.
Snow's gone. That's my wife.
Yeah, no, that's not, definitely not a thing. I'll talk to Kit and I'll try to clarify his comment.
I forget that winter ends.
I will ask him to clarify.
I can't relate.
You too.
Good stuff. I was going to watch my comment from home. You know, I'll stay. I'm going to watch from home.
Just giving you.
Yeah,
Go home, man.
Because
then you, I mean, you might decide to get up and talk and, better.
Came in.
We'll be done public comment by the time you get home.
Jamie, I thought you'd be really excited about the polls.
I am so excited. Did you see my smile? We're going to get Robert Tillotson on the phone.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I don't know I don't know the relevance.
Well, because I'd asked him.
Yeah, I remember you asking. Yeah.
But the thing is, I was walking by Millburn Standard, right where their outside tables.
Yeah.
Because there's two of them right there. And, to get up to, the second level of the standing. And you just can't. You
can't move.
You have to walk into the street.
Yeah.
It's the polls that are no longer. I'm really pumped up the meeting tomorrow, so we gotta get this done.
We're trying.
We want to move the stuff to this poll.
Government moves slowly.
Yeah.
Those darn polls, right?
Crazy.
All right.
Okay. Crazy.
Okay, and we're back. We're back to go for public comments. So, public comment period is a time for you to state your comments. It is not a dialogue between the public and the Township Committee. Our contact information is available on the Township website, and you're welcome to contact us directly through email. When you are ready to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and address. At 2.5 minutes, you will hear the buzzer and will have 30 seconds to wrap up your comments. When the second buzzer goes off at the full 3 minutes, your allotted time is over. It is with consensus from this township committee that we will strictly adhere to the 3-minute time limit for public comments. No person is permitted to yield his or her time to another speaker. If a member of the public disrupts the meeting by speaking beyond his or her 3-minute allotted time for public comment, or making disparaging remarks towards anybody on the committee, anybody in our community, I will advise you with a warning that you are disrupting the meeting. If you continue to disrupt the meeting, I will state that you are disrupting the meeting and preventing the business meeting from proceeding. If you continue to disrupt the meeting, I will call a 5-minute recess in which the township committee will leave the dais and you will be asked to leave the building, or we will just end the phone call. Please remember that we are all neighbors and we are here because we love our town. Thank you. Would anyone in the room like to make a public comment?
Again, my name is Jeffrey Phil. I've said my address several times. First, on behalf of my family, we would like to wish everyone, as we approach the holiday season, whether you're celebrating Passover or Easter, this is the second year that it's COVID-19. It's a tough, difficult time. Everyone enjoy it. And I get very reflective at this time because I celebrate both holidays, that we celebrate the freedom, liberty. And when you talk about Moses, he was the most humble prophet, and that's what they talk about. And when we talk about Jesus, and I have my wife's godmother is a sister superior, we always talk about he was a rabbi who was executed by the Romans because he was a radical. And some of the ideas that we're hearing tonight, I'm very concerned about the vision plan. Please post the final report as soon as possible, that we heard that is being prepared. We also heard about a traffic report. It was posted. I made an Oprah request. The response was, we don't know what you're talking about. These are the kind of things that gives bad names about transparency. The community needs to know that last week, a 198-page pleading was filed in the Woodmont case, alleging bad faith by this municipality. It was not filed by me. There's various, think of a swim meet with various lanes. You have various attorneys independently coming to various conclusions about the SID, what happened at Chatham Road. It's very important that the closed executive session minutes that I received today are posted on the public website. Because during those minutes, Mr. Buzak is attending those meetings, giving advice to the municipality. Mr. Buzak is also the planning board attorney. He's the referee of various applications that he has helped negotiate the settlements for. This is a very dangerous situation. I've been asking for a written, whether you obtained a written opinion, I can't tell you for how many more months. It's a very serious issue. Do not downplay it. Again, the holidays are coming up. Enjoy as best as you can. But some of the comments that was made earlier this evening really distressed me. What's going on in the country, we all agree, has to stop. But for one council member to say that he was elected, that the other candidates ran on a racial issue when one of the other candidates was Indian, that was insulting. It was demeaning to the public. And when we talk about derogatory comments, it goes both ways. Again, everyone enjoying the holidays, whatever you celebrate, please have a safe and do it the best you can because everyone's going to be Zooming. It's second year, it's horrible. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Felt. Would you like to bring the people on from the call? Or did you want to go first? You'll wait? Okay. Can you bring the people on from the call?
Dominic Urso, 514 Milburn Avenue. Some of the things I was trying to say before that I was limited from my freedom of speech again. I would like to make a statement regarding the 24-hour parking permits fees and how in December of 2019, in particular from my memory, it had a 100% increase. For people that have buildings and residential tenants, commercial tenants, it's a deterrent for the tenant then to see the astronomical amount that the 24-hour parking permit fees are. It's like a ridiculous amount of money that it costs, and I just would like to connect and hope that this is taken into consideration to please lower the fees because they are ridiculously high. I believe it was back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if I'm wrong, when Tara was on the other side going to speak to, at the time, during a township committee meeting to, at the time, Mayor Burstein, talking about the same thing, parking permits, and how even she felt that a quarterly payment or fee was even too much money or very expensive for people, and that's very understandable, that you requested for a month-to-month type of payment plan. Well, you had a problem of how expensive it was at the time, which is totally understandable, and what I'm asking for is to please take into consideration lowering the parking permit fees for 24-hour. It's very, very high, and many people do not want to pay it, and it's a deterrent for getting our vacant spaces filled to have tenants in. So thank you, have a great night, and I would just like to say that I was treated very poorly tonight, and that type of behavior is deplorable from a mayor to dismiss tax-paying citizens. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you, Ms. Urso. Take the next person on the phone, please.
Hello. Hi, it's Richard Footer, 333 Milburn Avenue. Before I make my comment, I just want to say that, Mr. Wasserman, it's almost impossible to hear you. If either your mic is off or your...
I fixed it. You're right. Sorry.
Oh, sneaky. Okay. In regards to the flex parking, that's a really rough decision you've got to make there. I don't know if I could make it. I didn't like the flex parking when I saw it on paper. I didn't like the flex parking when it was going in, and after it went in, I had an immense dislike for it. It took forever to put in, not because of the flex parking bricks that they've used, but there was they had to extend the drainage storm sewers out. I don't know how you're going to handle that, so I don't think it's as easy as just removing the pavers and just filling it in with blacktop, unless you leave these storm sewer grids out, you know, in the street. So I know that you've done a lot of work, but maybe you should take a closer look at that. My heart goes out to those businesses. I don't think I could make a decision to put them through that again, but that's your decision, and I appreciate it. It's a difficult one. As far as the parking circulation plan goes, I just want to make a comment that I served on Milburn's Parking and Traffic Committee for close to 30 years, and from time to time we did look at restoring two-way traffic, and each time the county came back and said that they would allow it, but it probably would mean parking being taken off of at least one side of Milburn Avenue, maybe in some spots both sides. So I think before you make a decision, you should take a look at that. I didn't see anything in the vision plan about increasing the stock of parking. I saw more managing the existing supply. So you might want to take a look at that, because that could be a deal breaker on that. That's about all I've got to say, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fetter. Next person on the phone, please.
Good evening. I also was going to mention that I missed most of what Mr. Wasserman said this evening. I'm sorry, especially about the Main Street issue. I just couldn't hear you. A clarification, please. Could you tell me who the speaker was earlier tonight who spoke about the remediation of the groundwater? I didn't catch a name.
That's our attorney, Ms. Voss.
Oh, okay. And then lastly, I think this is for Mr. McDonald. The county executive identified some high traffic intersections in the county that he received grant money for to do some work. And one of them is the corner of Milburn and Vauxhall. I wondered if there was any timeline yet for work to be done there. And my second question in general about money is whether or not our township share of the rescue plan will be identified in our budget plans. Thank you.
Thank you. And please, Ms. Sherman, can you just identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sarah Sherman, 42 Greenwood Drive.
Thank you. Right, we will come back, so if we just keep going down the list. Mr. Nolan.
Nancy Stone, 266 Essex Street. I'm actually sitting in my office watching the meeting because I'm working late tonight. Just really disappointed with the people that don't necessarily convey their mindset because they're frustrated. And in that frustration, you were also in that position many years ago, Tara, when you were fighting the same causes that many of us have taken our time and our evenings for. It's very, very disheartening. And especially when someone is a property owner and a young woman who is giving her time as well. So with that said, I was very pro the Complete Streets project. I still think that it was definitely something in the right direction. I'm very pro development, very pro anything being better than what it could be. With that said, I'm adamantly opposed to this SID, the way it was constructed, the whole way it was put forward, the way that this Ryan Gleason was hired. I think Richard did, unfortunately, not a good job, and it was reflective in the fact that he resigned after less than a month. Jackie also, I don't know how we can really trust these people to hire another executive director when clearly their choices were not so good. As far as the Main Street, this was something that was brought up years ago, was fought down many, many times. Don't understand why it needs to be done. These grants, you become like public servants. It was similar to the parking garage. If we accepted state or county money, then the transit authority would have had jurisdiction as to who could park there. Anybody could park there, and we really protected it for the Milburn Short Hills residents. I mean, this looks like Complete Streets. This vision project looks like Complete Streets 2.0 on steroids, which everybody was critical of. If we can organize events pretty quickly in Taylor Park, which are commendable to do, then I don't understand why we can't organize an event in the high school or certainly in the stadium outdoors. The warm weather's coming, and you really need to get more public buy-in because, Tara, like you said, before you opened your business, there was a jackhammer that appeared and you were like in shock. Like, how did this happen? How did I not know about it? Well, if you would have done your due diligence, you would have known about it. And quite frankly, a lot of people are...
Thank you. On to the next, please. Thank you, Mr. Rowland.
Good evening, Perry Urso, 514 Milburn Avenue in Short Hills. Just a couple things. I'd like to circle back to the March 2021 meeting. I brought up franchise fees. I emailed the board on the 19th and asked about the meeting broadcastings. So I asked if all the meetings were going to be broadcasted. So are they or are they not? It shouldn't be assumed that the majority of the community have computer access. I would also point out that it is clear that Committeewoman Miggins was more concerned about who was the mayor at the time than understanding franchise fees. I believe at the time it was Mayor Eglo was looking to save the township money. And Mr. McDonald failed to inform her of the franchise fees and where they came from. And the township is not actually using township's money. Mayor Prupus, you should request that Committeewoman Miggins owes Committeewoman now Eglo an apology for her trying to discredit her intentions. I also like to point out that to my surprise, on February 23rd, 2021, I did not notice one representative from the Township of Milburn at the groundbreaking of the nearly 28 stagnant property known as the old Saks Fifth Avenue building. Not only that the township, we had many objections and was fighting projects on behalf of township members, but it would have shown in good faith. But I feel that the township, as a neighbor, should have been there. And it was to my surprise that I also learned that the township actually received an invitation, and only one township committee person had the courtesy to contact and respond back and telling them that they had a conflict and they would not be able to attend. It's clear that we are leaning on this project to revitalize Upper Milburn Avenue. So we should be thankful and thanking Springfield for the revitalization of Upper Milburn Avenue. And I would like to say, Committeewoman Eglo, I feel, and I would ask your other fellow members to stop discrediting you, but learn from you. In these past months, I have watched you, and you're a true townswoman, and I would like to thank you, and I wish that some of your committee people would follow that lead. Thank you. Have a nice evening. And lastly, Mr. McDonald, I'd like to thank you for getting expeditiously those speed bumps back. I appreciate it. I'm not sure, but there may have been missing one, but if we have two.
Thank you very much for your comment. All right, we're going to take Mr. Esposito, and then that is it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you can.
Oh, hey, I just wanted to say thank you to the mayor, Prupus, and the town council, and for everyone for a marathon meeting. I just want to say I can't think of a larger venue than Zoom. And if people really care about the direction or where this town is going, that they'll show up and they'll be present, whether it's in person or on Zoom. I'm quite comfortable in my house. It's been a 3-hour meeting. So I just want to commend you all. I did have a question for Eric and for the vision plan earlier. And maybe it's not a question for him, but maybe for a question for the town or more of a watch out. When I drive, I'm up on Upper Milburn Avenue, Joe Esposito, 80 Meadowbrook Road. My entrance into town is currently where the Wells Fargo Bank is. And that's going to change. And I guess I'm trying to figure out, we have a vision plan for the town, but I would love if there was an architectural vision plan for the town as well. For any new buildings coming up, or to have some more cohesion in our downtown, whether it's signage, whether it's awning colors, just something. Because for me, the biggest eyesore is 402 Milburn Ave and 400 Milburn Ave. If you like modern architecture, it's great. It doesn't really fit in with the entrance to town. So if there's something, I love the Chatham Road district. They're all tutors. That's a very classic thing. But if there's something in the vision for the future of more cohesive plan for architecture, just something to point out. But thank you for your time and serving our community. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Esposito. All right, we are going to close public comment now. I know, right, I forgot, so, sorry, Ms. Pasternak. Yes. Thank you for being so patient.
Yep, Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart. I just want to go sort of on the theme of transparency. I feel like a lot of us have come before you asking for information, questions. We've formalized that by submitting things, whether they're just lists of questions or whether they're Oprah, and we're just not getting the answers. And I think that that's a real source of frustration. A legal presentation that was made in January, we still don't have the backup. We came to a meeting, you had requested that, Mayor, and eventually we had that meeting and you stayed silent. The only thing I heard really was a lecture again about how to file an Oprah, and also from Ms. Miggins about addressing her as a committee person. I mean, it just was demeaning, you know. It didn't encourage me to want to come to you and ask and really have a dialogue. So I just want to be honest with you about that. And I also want to say that, you know, there's a lot of things that make sense to be public about, like telling residents that they're paying for this SID. It's not just assessments from the businesses. We are paying as residents. And I don't think people understood that, and we're clearly explained to about that. I think that needs to be stated. You do a mayor's message, you can put things in that mayor's message every Friday. Similarly, you know, having about this downtown visions thing tonight, it was at the very bottom of your message this week. Put that, you know, on its own, by itself, to that distribution. Maybe then people might show up. I think the other thing is this whole issue to do with the application for the Main Street, New Jersey. That was definitely done in a stealth way. I mean, there's no question, right? It came up at this meeting, but it was all done back through the back door with the SID, Downtown Vision. Now we're in Main Street. You talked a lot about Committeeman Wasserman about all the benefits, but there were no negatives stated, and there are some negatives. When you take money from the state, there are things that we're going to be restricted from doing as well. So I think it's really good, just like I asked the Downtown Visions people, present a cost benefit. Tell us the pluses and minuses and be honest with us. Then we can gain your trust and you will get support. But when we feel like we're being toyed with and played with, you're not going to get the trust. We don't want to come here complaining. We know you guys give your time. But we do want honest dialogue with the community. And not everybody does agree and not everybody will be outspoken, but we are, and we think we're representing more than just ourselves. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Pasternak.
Carrie Heller, 343 Milburn Avenue. I'm going to ramble. You usually don't ramble. I'm involved 29 years since I bought the courtyard. My picture was on the front of the item from 29 years ago is the guy that was going to save the downtown. Didn't know the downtown was even a problem. I knew the building was a problem. History matters. You're all here for a reason. I've come to know each one of you individually through separate channels at different times. Mr. Vinayak, we haven't met yet. Nice to meet you.
You too.
29 years, there's been 13 mayors. One has been mayor twice, was out and came back in. I could do them all in order. The first 5 or so really didn't care about the downtown. Some didn't think outdoor dining was a thing. Some didn't think parking was a problem. They'd just drive around the town 4 or 5 times. You could always get a parking space. History does matter. You've all come to be here, not just for the downtown, but for lots of things. I've talked to each of you about many, many different things. Maggie, we've walked the Silverman, the parking lot. Diane, go way back. Didn't know each other 60 years ago. Sorry again, that age.
Hey.
How far back we go. I may be older. Tara, we've known each other just 4 years. Some people think longer. Richard, about 3 years. The history of this town goes back to Old Short Hills Road and Millburn Avenue. It's some 250 years old. My building, for those who haven't walked inside, and there's another map going up shortly, there's a bunch of old photos. The Sterling Milburn Hotel was on the corner of Millburn Avenue in Maine. The building is still there, except it's been moved. I'm not going to let the secret. The building is still there. Milburn was spelled with one L. in its history. I think some have come to know that, but I think it goes back to its old Scottish heritage. I don't know if we've talked about that going back when we, but there's 2 pictures up, old photos in our building. The train station used to be on Main Street, crossing over at the middle school. Right? We're talking about changing the town. Montclair's had some issues. I'm in a litigation up there with other people to help preserve and save something that was done badly 35 years ago. We have a great opportunity now. And where I'm going with this is, if you as the township committee, the DMDA did not fail. It did fail after 30 years, but we had a lot of very successful years. It didn't get acted upon. The DMDA plan of 2000 needed to go. It was like a vision plan. Then Dan Baer has spoken of 2006, not quite accurately, but Dan, some things happened, then 2008 happened. Continuity of government is important. What you 5 do, it's not going to end with this TC. There's one election coming up and only one person. Hopefully that continuity will continue if Tara decides to run. It's going to have to go beyond the 5 of you. And if you don't all work together, I'm just saying to you, I and others in the business community are going to look to you to hold together, because the business community and people, while I may not necessarily agree with the SID, parts of it, I may not agree with the Main Street organization, but I'm here to support you. And let's go forward, both as a township committee, together, and we're looking toward you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hiller. Okay, public comment is now closed. Does any of the members of the committee want to make any comments to anything that was brought up during public?
I do, Mayor.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay. So
Yes.
first of all, I want to start with, in the beginning, I actually complimented the community in our town and the residents in the town. I don't know why it was taken negative. I was chosen by the resident of the town, not just the Indian community. So just to set the facts straight. Secondly, I in fact value you guys' input. I have a bill list question that you asked, and I wouldn't even ask anyone to answer that. I would answer it. NPSM, there was a $321,000 payment made. It's New Providence Summit Milburn. That is a 911 dispatch service that we all belong to. It's $1.286 million a year, which is quarterly payment for that. Then there's a Maplewood Township payment that was made. That is, we take service from them on the building department, which is plumbing and some building thing. So those were the 2. I, in fact, like when you guys bring it on. These are the big sum that we paid out that we reviewed too. But there was another $5,000 request that you made, which I'm not sure what that was. So that I'll let Alex or Mr. McDonald answer your question. But overall, I do value when you guys bring the question up, and it's a straightforward question and we can answer it. There is all the transparency that we keep. I have come to the township, this is my first year. I have not seen anything hidden behind. Everything that I ask, or before even asking, proactively, I get an answer. So again, instead of taking things negative, I would appreciate if some people also take things positive. Another reminder, we are not raising taxes. No one has ever come and appreciated that fact. I've been informed that twice already. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Committeeman Vinyayak. Yes?
Yeah,
Mr. Osterman?
I just
Committee
want
Member,
to
Deputy Mayor.
invite everybody, when they leave, when they exit the building, as I've mentioned in past meetings, Committeewoman Miggins and I and HPC Chair Allison Canfield, we've been working on portable solar trees as a way of enhancing the township. I'm working on a proposal right now, but we actually were able to do 2 mock-ups, and they are actually on Milburn Avenue. They're supposed to illuminate in the evenings, although we just put them out, so they may not, so forgive us tonight if they're not fully illuminated, but please take a look at them. I'll be making a visual presentation at the next meeting, and I hope you like them, and we're working hard to to improve, all the districts in the township.
Wait, but they're real trees. They're not solar trees. They're real trees
They're-
being
they're-
lit by solar-powered light.
Yeah, that's right. They're real trees.
Real
They
trees.
have to be really maintained and watered.
Yeah. Cherries.
And they're sustainable.
Yeah, they're gonna be great.
And we can move them around if we
Mhm.
have to do work or something.
I have two quick things. Mrs. Pasternak asked about salaries and wages and transparency. The KPIs are going to show that? No? I thought Committeeman Vinayak said there were 7 groups of things that were going to.
Yeah, there's several different types of KPIs. We have response time for the fire department, car burglaries, car thefts, burglaries, building department permits issued, building department inspections completed, and spatial data logic concerns and complaints received and processed in a particular month.
Okay. But that all comes up in the budget, I guess. And then also minutes delayed. Ms. Voss, maybe you could speak to why sometimes we can't put out closed minutes, or why they come out delayed, since we're new, or Mr. Vinayak and I are new up here, and why does that exactly happen when something comes out from 2017 or 2018?
Sure. The closed session minutes are released when the matter of privilege or confidentiality is resolved. So when there's no longer a basis for a confidentiality, which was the original reason for going into closed session in the first place, when that is resolved, then the minutes can be released. Now, even the minutes that get released can be reasonably redacted. And in fact, legal opinions that are rendered during closed sessions are redacted even after the fact. So when these closed meeting minutes are released after tonight, they won't be there 100% because legal opinions are redacted appropriately.
Thank you.
One quick thing, we were talking about how slow government moves, and something weird. What is the update on that White Oak Ridge and Hobart Gap traffic light?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry
Yes.
to bring that up.
No, that's okay. This is a perfect example of government moving slowly. We've received 3 of the agreements back from 3 of the 4 corner properties. The 4th corner property is proving to be a little bit more difficult in that the survey done on the roadway is it's an old road, and it's curved and there's some, but essentially the right of way is incorrect, and we need to take take more property from another property than what was originally anticipated. So there's some difficulty in doing that, and just wanting to make sure that we communicate well with the resident, and so the project has become more difficult in this first part of it than originally anticipated. Again, the county is ready, the money is ready. We're not, but when you're dealing with property acquisition, easements, or otherwise in taking, it is not an easy road to haul. So
Thank
that's
you.
where we're at.
Okay, so the town should know, we have not forgotten.
No,
It is
not
on
at
the
all.
radar.
Absolutely not. Matter just had a meeting about it on Friday. So
Fabulous. Okay, thanks.
So before we end this evening, I want to take a moment to address the gun violence that took the lives of 10 in Colorado this week. I ask, when is it enough? How many lives are too many lives? I believe that one life lost is one too many. The pain felt by those who have lost mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and friends to gun violence is truly unimaginable. And yet for some, their pain isn't a high enough price. The empty seats around the dinner table, the phone calls that will never come again, the milestones lost, have not been enough to find the will to enact common sense gun safety rules nationwide. What does this say to the families who have suffered? What does it say about our values as a nation? This isn't a debate about freedom. Freedom is being able to go to the grocery store, to a movie, or to school without fear of gun violence. No one is talking about taking guns away, and to say so is disingenuous and dangerous pandering. We're talking about common sense, universal background checks, limiting the sale of high-capacity magazines and assault weapons. Yes, we offer our thoughts and prayers to the families who have lost their loved ones, but we must also offer our resolve to fight to make changes that will save lives. Let us take a moment of silence to honor the lives lost. Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right, good night, Millburn Township.
Good night.
Night.
No.